All right. Okay, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Hartford Selectboard on Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025 at 6:02 p.m. Our first item of business, the Pledge of Allegiance. Would anyone like to lead us tonight?
I would be happy to.
Thank you, Lanny.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks, Lanny.
Thank you for that honor, sir.
All right, we don't have any liquor board business, no cannabis business, order of agenda. We have a couple things. I'll just start with one. I think that we decided to do was that agenda items K 2 through 5, the HPD donations, those are not really time sensitive, and we may have a long agenda tonight. So
Miranda, your shirts.
I'm trying to figure out how to make this happen and the speaker view at the same time. Do you know if that's possible?
Not really.
Okay, never mind then.
Are we? I mean, what are people seeing at home?
They're seeing that.
They're just
Yeah,
on the
okay.
screen.
All right, so the HPD ones will move because they're not time sensitive. The fire department one we will consider because that involves life safety materials. Okay, and then so it sounds like one of the members is not going to be here tonight, and that member was the one who proposed item I, which is the ordinance prohibiting face coverings. And so if he's not going to be here, I don't know. I mean, if he was going to introduce it and tell us about the purpose of it. So I don't know if we would do that, but Ashley, you said you had a suggestion of you consider the board instead.
Yeah. And with the ordinance language and responses back and forth from all the kind of like affected parties being in the agenda packet, I've read through all of it, and I have I've also checked base with our state legislators, and I think I have a proposal that's worth our time tonight. I also think I was going to propose that if a lot of people came tonight for that topic, since I think it might be rather quick, maybe we move it up in the order of agenda and get it out of the way. But that's just totally up to you, Mike, just a thought.
Well, I mean, I think the board has to decide what we want to do as a majority.
So it sounds like a shift to a brief discussion on the topic with no decisions made.
I would like a decision made, but I don't think it's a super binding. I don't think it's a high list.
It's not a motion.
It would be a motion, yeah, there would be a
I think
motion.
it's hard without giving context of
Yeah.
what it is.
Do you want me to say it? I can say
Yeah,
it.
you can tell us what you're going to do.
Yeah, I have discovered that there is already legislation being proposed at the state level where the state actually has the authority to enforce such kinds of motions, whereas we do not have any enforcement over other law enforcement agencies such as ICE or Customs and Border Patrol, whereas the state does have the ability to create a misdemeanor that a law enforcement agency could be in violation of. So my suggestion would be that we move to have John invite our Windsor County representatives to our next or a future board meeting to give us an update about that piece of legislation. And then we can find out ways that we could possibly support it if we choose.
I don't know. I think that's something you can just direct John to do. Right now, the majority, it's like, John, could you look into doing that for the next meeting or a subsequent meeting? I think we could do that. And then we could just the face covering item just take off the agenda.
Are there 4 votes, I wonder, for doing that?
I'm amenable to that.
My only concern though is that I don't want to silence public comment on the topic. I think that if I know that certain people have come out for the topics.
I know, but if we're not going to do anything on the face ordinance, it's going to be the state. I mean, I don't know that there's anything more to comment about. And, you know, since it's not on the agenda anymore, if they want to come up and say, I can't believe you even considered this during public comment, they can. You know, that's
Okay, yeah, public comment would
but
be.
it will, I think, make sense to, since he's not going to be here and we, as a state, sort of the next steps are coming from the state, we can ask our representatives to come in, keep us up to date, and we can take off item L agenda. Probably make our meeting a little more palatable in terms of living. So I think, is everyone okay with that? Good? Okay, all right. We've done our agenda, so now we'll go to public comment. So public comment, we start with people in the room.
Oh, by the way, we should also mention that the chair of the select board is not here tonight.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mary could not make it tonight, so I am back in the saddle. All right, so public comment, we'll start with people in the room, then we'll hear from people joining us by Zoom. If you want to come up, just and you're in the room, come up to the microphone, state your name and village of residence. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. We have a timer. Once the timer goes off, please wrap up your comments. And we generally say, since item L is off the agenda now, generally we ask you for public comment. If there's an item you want to comment about that's on the agenda, please wait till we get to that item on the agenda for comment. But public comment, anything else that's not on the agenda, feel free to come on up. All right, we'll start. Lanny Collins.
Lanny Collins, Quechee. So I've watched the select board meetings here quite regularly, and I've seen Tim get up and speak and quite eloquently about the fact that you guys seem to be getting off track a little bit. I was kind of hoping that your workshop would be able to get you back on track in terms of the rules, the role of the town Hartford Select Board. And then I see these things on the agenda that you just tabled for police face coverings, and I watched the whole fiasco with parking meters and fines, and it just seems like this current board seems to want to take the steps of micromanaging departments. You have a town manager that was hired to manage the town and to manage the department heads within that town. The town manager is responsible for hiring the department heads to manage their individual departments. All right. They're the people who are the subject matter experts when it comes to things such as parking enforcement, what we need to have happen for a sustainable building in the town of Hartford. Those are the kind of people that we need to rely on. And yet this board seems to be making a mockery of the process of what our police department's job is and the expertise that our police department has. I heard Will Fernary get up here and talk to you about what he needed to be doing for prosecuting fines. And it was arguments with him about, well, you don't need this and you don't need that. And here's a man that is a trained officer. We've sent him to many schools in the past in the town of Hartford. He's gone through the police academy. He's the one that has to defend his position when he goes and has a fine. And yet it's argumentative, the select board saying you don't need that. Now, I may be wrong, but I don't know of anybody on the select board that has any law enforcement experience. But yet you're trying to tell the police department what to do. And when it comes to the building for the Bugby Center, there's such a roundabout getting people that are qualified to answer questions. It's a town building. We have town experts in the town that are hired for doing that thing. We need to take advantage of that expertise. It seems like this board needs to get a better handle on what the duties of the select board are. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny. Any other public comment in the room? Not seeing any. Miranda, are there people on Zoom?
Yes. Marie, go ahead.
Good evening, thank you. Marie Elvin, White River, Hartford Avenue specifically. I just wanted to give everybody an update of what's happening up there.
Okay.
As far as the select board members, I just want to point out that we have 4 new select board members. So they have walked into a mess. So they are not always to blame. As far as Hartford Avenue goes, the park and ride is being patrolled and ordinance is enforced, and the HPD is doing an excellent job up there. I did have a few questions about the lighting. Chief, I wanted to point out that Chief Kelly did approve lighting and cameras, but you as a select board chose not to put cameras at that park and ride, even though the chief of police was in favor of it. And has the grant been applied for? What is the amount that it was sent in for? And can we plan to have these lights put in before winter? The Haven in Twin Pines seem to be paying more attention to their guests, and things seem quieter to me. I don't see everything, but people tell me once in a while, wow, there was a couple of cruisers and an ambulance at the Haven, and then Monday night there was a couple of more cruisers at Twin Pines. But all in all, I guess they are trying to improve things, and I do see that and wanted to acknowledge that. Still wondering how much the Haven and Twin Pines is costing us taxpayers with all the emergency services that they are requiring, and they are draining our police and emergency services at our expense. Shouldn't be too hard to find out this information. We have a full-time data person now. This person should be able to tell us how many calls go to the Haven, how many goes to Twin Pines, and what they are going there for. That's the way for us to track what's going on in these buildings and make the building owners accountable. As well as still want to know the price on that. I've been a part of this outreach that the police have done, and it's been very informative, very disappointed that only maybe 4, 7 guests or residents from Hartford show up, and the rest are all providers. So that's discouraging. One of the police lieutenants voiced his concern about being able to keep up with the ongoing demand that specifically these two people and the drug problem in general are causing for this town. Personally, I'd like to see more information about needle collection. Where are the needles coming from, and how many needles are we collecting? The other day, I heard that the lineman.
Marie, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We've reached the 3 minutes, so if you could wrap up in the next 10 seconds, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, the needle collection, Lyman Point Park. I heard that they were emptying that that needle dispenser every other day. Big problem down there. I also heard there were teenage kids hanging out with the men, the homeless men that have been allowed to camp behind the Main Street Museum and the Four Seasons dispensary. So we got teenage girls hanging out doing drugs with men behind the Main Street Museum. And we all know that men going with girls, the girls will be soliciting, they will be dealing and prostituting. Thank you very much.
For your comments, and thank you for the update. Upon and if you have any questions, you mentioned some questions, just please email the town manager, and he can see what he can, what kind of answers he can get for you. Okay, thanks. Miranda, anyone else on Zoom?
Yep, Rachel, go ahead.
Rachel?
Hello, my name is Rachel Hobart, and I'm a resident here at Hartford. I also have an 8-year-old son who attends Dothan Brook, and I am zooming in favor of the police, ICE, or federal people that come into Hartford, should they ever abduct people, to not have face coverings on. Reason being.
So a couple things. Normally for public comment, if an agenda is, well, I just want to tell you, I don't know if you were watching earlier, but we tabled that particular agenda item because there's efforts at the state level to address it. So what we're going to do is have the town manager invite some of our Windsor County, Hartford delegation to a future meeting so they can give us an update.
Okay, because I just saw the gentleman who talked before Marie, he was talking about it. So I thought it was okay to talk about it.
No, it is.
It is. It's not on the agenda anymore. I just wanted to make sure you were aware that we tabled it.
Yeah, I would just like to give my perspective on it, if that's possible.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And the reason why I'm for it is because I'm a mother, I'm a brown woman, and my son is also brown. We're both Native American. And seeing what's going on in the country, I see a lot of Facebook posts saying, oh, this doesn't happen here. Why do we need to have this even on the agenda? And it's because people can order uniforms off of line and go and abduct people, and you don't know who it is. So if someone's videoing and they don't have that face covering, then that face can be said that person, are they or are they not legal law enforcement? And as a brown person walking down the street, if a group hopped out of a car and started coming over and taking me into a car, I would at least be able to look into their face and know who they are if there was a lineup. If there's a lineup and there's masks on, how am I going to know who abducted me? So I am absolutely for this. I hope people can look that it's going to protect the citizens of Hartford, because a lot of people I hear them saying, well, this is just, oh, those libs are getting their panties in a bunch and they're going to, no, it's to protect the citizens of Hartford. And that's what we do. And so I am in favor for this, and it's protect me and my son and anybody else who's walking around who can get abducted so easily now in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Miranda, anyone else wants to?
Yes.
Oh, I'm gonna cry over here.
Sonia, go ahead.
Sonia?
Hi, Sonia O'Banion from Hartford.
Yep.
Just a couple of things. I had emailed the town manager and the select board a couple of times asking, and I'd like my 3 minutes before you answer. I'd like to know what the process is for filling the Brandon's seat on the select board. I do have interest in joining the select board and filling that seat until March. And I know that that's going to further on the agenda. However, I asked ahead of time what that would entail and if there's going to be a vote tonight, and I never got an email back. Which, I don't know what your process is, and maybe you could make that known how quickly people get back on the emails, but it would have been nice to get that before the meeting. Also, there is another citizen that emailed several questions to you earlier this morning, asking for answers before the meeting tonight, which he got nothing, no response for. And a couple of things. The Coolidge hotel block that's supposed to be talked about at 6:55. We don't even understand why the town would even consider this. That specific block has been given money over the years from town grants, state grants, and the mismanagement of funds for that building has been going on for years. And I don't agree that the town should be partaking in that. And then the other item that I'd like to mention, just excuse me, that just to point out that the face mask issue, and I hope this gets resolved, but I think that we need to protect our law enforcement as part of these citizens in this town. And if they need to cover their faces to protect them going forward, I am for that. And I'm strongly for that. So again, I did ask the question of what was going on with Brandon's seat and my interest in that seat, and I was not given an answer. So is that going to be voted on tonight, or are you going to discuss what you're going to do with that?
Sonia, I can just respond to John Haverstock.
Hi, John.
I received your email at 2:59 this afternoon, and my records show that I responded to you 11 minutes later at 3:10.
I didn't get an email from you.
I can confirm.
Could you just answer the question? That'd be great.
Yeah, I can do that. I can just read the email that I thought I sent you.
Could you just answer the question and not be a smart ass about it? That'd be great.
All right, you can cut her off. Sorry, John, got that?
Yeah.
Anyone else on Zoom?
Marcy, go ahead.
Okay, Marcy.
Hello?
Yeah, Marcy.
I'm sorry, I unplugged my earbuds for a moment there when the language got dirty. Okay, I'm taking a breath. Marcy Bartlett from Wilder. I have an urgent family matter going on and I can't stay on the call, okay?
Okay.
this was important enough to me to at least get on briefly. And I'm sorry that it's out of order because I know it's later in your agenda, but I cannot be on later. I
Okay,
just would ask if you could please consider holding off on making decisions on the water matter with Norwich and Hartford. And for as the reasons I've given you, but frankly, it's so complex and also something of that magnitude and with those ramifications. I heartily believe it should be before the voters at town meeting, not at a select board meeting. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
thank you, Marcy. Miranda, anyone else on Zoom? All right.
Oh, wait, just joking, one more.
Okay.
MK, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a question too about Brandon's seat. Can,
Can you identify
Please
yourself,
identify
please?
yourself.
oh, sorry, Mary Kay Brown, White River Junction. What is gonna happen with the vacant seat? Are you guys gonna fill it, or are you gonna ask for interested people who might be willing to take the seat until March, or what?
I think we're gonna discuss what to do. I understand we can leave the seat vacant like we did last year when a member resigned. We could appoint someone and maybe do an application process, or we could ask that there's a special election to be held. And I think we have to decide where the board is on what we want to do with that. And that's going to be a discussion hopefully we have tonight and get some clarity going forward for whichever path we end up choosing.
All right, I would suggest that you fill the seat and take applications from interested people because
This is on the agenda.
That's true. This is on the agenda.
Oh, all right. Well, it's a long time till March, so let's get a seventh person there.
All right. Thanks, Mary Kay.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else, Miranda?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, so we'll end public comment. Go to select board comments and announcements. Ashley, we'll start with you if you have anything.
Yeah, I just want to make mention of on July 1, a round of unhoused individuals who were part of the state motel voucher program were exited from motels, and this group was medically vulnerable folks on oxygen, folks in late stages of cancer treatment, people with newborn babies, and those folks were exited from the motels throughout the state, many of which here in Hartford. And there have been at least 3, and I'm still trying to confirm maybe 4 deaths of unhoused people in White River Junction in Hartford since that July 1 evacuation or eviction. So I would welcome the Homelessness and Housing Committee, probably messing up the formal name of that committee, to come before the board for any support that they need, for any ideas that they have, and just make myself available to any community members who are working on this issue, who are supporting these folks. We've got to address it at a municipal level because the federal government is failing us, the state government is failing us, and now it's being left, like many other issues, expensive, high-cost issues, in our laps. So that's what I wanted to make mention of tonight.
Thank you, Ashley. Ida, any comments?
Yeah, just one comment that I'm sure many residents are aware that tax bills were mailed out, and this year they included a flyer that included resources for people who may be facing financial hardship. I do want to recognize Mr. Collins, who is here, because as a former board member, it was actually his idea initially, and then we put that into action. But I think as a board, I want to just express that we are open to feedback on that flyer, on what may be useful, what should be included, what should not be included if it's not relevant, because I hope this is something that we can continue to do to provide some practical assistance and direction for folks that may find it useful as they consider their financial situation. So yeah, any feedback on that flyer is welcome, and we will consider it for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida. Miranda? Eric?
Nothing.
I don't have anything either. So we'll move on to appointments. So we've got one, this is a renewal. Consider the reappointment of Nikki Boyle to the Parks and Recreation Commission for a 3-year term, beginning July 22nd, 2025 ending July 21st, 2028. So this is a reappointment, so Nikki is not required to be here. So I would take a motion unless people have any thoughts on the nomination itself or renomination, and anything they'd like to discuss.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Eric.
Thank you. If there is nothing else from the board, I will move that the board reappoint Nikki Boyle to the Parks and Recreation Commission for a 3-year term beginning July 22nd, 2025 and ending July 21st, 2028.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second from Miranda. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that passes. All right, town manager's report. Over to you, John.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and Acting Chair. On July 1st, 2025, the town's voter-approved local option sales tax took effect. If there are any retailers in Hartford, and that includes all 5 villages, who have not heard from the state about the requirement to collect and report this tax revenue, please contact the Vermont Department of Taxes right away. Town Select Board set tax rates on Thursday, July 10th. Tax bills were printed the following day and mailed out Monday, July 14th. As mentioned in the July 14th special Select Board meeting, a tax sale is scheduled for August 14th. I'm pleased to report that out of the 50 parcels that were originally eligible for disposition through tax sale, we're now down to 16, and we hope that trend continues for the next month or so. Hopefully some of these people will find a way to pay their debt and be removed from the tax list. Outreach opportunity. The general manager of the Quechee Club has extended an invitation for select board members and staff to attend a 90-minute community forum at the Quechee Club on either Wednesday, November 5th or 19th from 5:30 to 7 to discuss issues of a common interest and concern. The timing is opportune because the select board has been considering engaging in more community outreach. Some board members will remember having participated in a well-attended and well-received listening session in Wilder last year, for example. This event could be open to the broader community as the Quechee Club's main dining room can accommodate 150 people, roughly 5 times, 6 times, 7 times the amount of people we have here today. If the select board is interested, I'd be happy to accept the invitation and work with the Quechee Club to develop an agenda for the forum. And finally, on a topic that was discussed earlier, we had advertised as requested by the board for 2 more community members to join the Bugby Building Renovation Committee, which has 13 members. This will take us to 15. We have received 7 applications and the deadline is this Friday. So I'm open to any suggestions or motions or orders as to how you'd like Mark Bradley and I or others to decide which of those 7 or more applicants we should add to the committee. In terms of things around the other departments, I can point out that the town clerk reports the Board of Abatement held 8 abatement hearings on Tuesday, July 15th. 4 abatements were granted, 4 were denied. The Board of Civil Authority received 28 tax assessment appeal requests by the July 11th deadline. A schedule of meetings to be held in August, possibly into September if needed, will be forthcoming. Parks and Rec, on another topic raised earlier, notes the persistent and increasingly concerning behaviors in and around town parks, to include the dropping of dangerous used syringes in areas that could cause injury to third parties. Lyman East continues to be used as an informal gathering site with smoking, drinking, and other unfortunate behaviors. In a walkthrough of Veterans Park recently, Scott Hausler found 4 individuals sleeping on site, 1 on a cot next to the monument, another on a bench, and 2 more in a tent hidden behind overgrown knotweed at the edge of the park. Nearly every location contained spoiled food, used needles, tourniquets, and scattered personal belongings. We are looking to align with the police department for more corrective action to ensure our parks and public spaces remain safe, clean from public health hazards, and accessible for the entire community. In fact, Scott and myself, some of Scott's team and the HPD members attended a meeting last Friday to discuss the situation. Highway reports that they made repairs to a cracked sidewalk along Route 5 North, Main Street down into White River Junction. Hopefully that'll make for a smoother walking and or wheelchair use. At the solid waste transfer station, they are experiencing an increasing amount of customers, primarily associated with the discontinuance of the curbside recycling program. The station number 2 for the fire department is coming close to completion. Contractor is working on punch list items with subcontractors and preparing for a certificate of occupancy. In terms of the communications and media specialist, JD reports that he has launched a new program called Ask Hartford. It's a way for residents to get questions answered by the town. The question and answers will be published every other week in the Hartford News and on the website. He's also created a page on the website for the Route 5 sidewalk project, where we will post updates on the Route 5 sidewalk construction up near Sykes Mountain Avenue interchange. There will be a continued effort to update the website to be more helpful for residents, specifically the recycling center and the WABA page, as well as the Sherman Manning Aquatic Facility. The Department of Planning notes that striping of a pedestrian path on the bridge at the West Hartford Bridge has been completed. Signage will be installed shortly. And again, on that same Route 5 sidewalk project, they note that, and this is between Ballardville Drive and Arboretum Lane, that work from the contractor began on Tuesday of this week, today. So hopefully that project will be successfully completed as well. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for John?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about how we may respond to the 2 questions he asked of us. If we want to address those now, or if we'll address those.
About the Quechee.
Listening.
Meeting?
Yeah, the listening session, and what was the other?
Bugby decisions.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for the Quechee, if you want to have we've talked about doing more public outreach, and if we've been invited by Quechee Club to go there and have dates, you know, I think it would be worthwhile for John to pursue that if everyone, if a majority of the board that would be consent to that.
These are the off night. It's a Wednesday. These are Wednesday nights. So
Looks like I see 4.
Yeah, just, I know, great. So just a couple follow-up questions, like, you know, would all Hartford residents be invited?
I believe
assume that
so.
would be, yeah, just to clarify that. And is it like, are they hoping to set a topic or agenda, or would they want?
They're willing to
collaboration?
work with the town on
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, because they raised some topics and I raised some as well. And we seem agreeable to hashing something out, which of course we'd forward to you for approval.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
On the Bugby, so we have 2 vacancies.
Right.
We have 5.
7 so
7
far, and
applications.
the week is young still.
Wow, that's a Friday. So the question is, what do you want us to see all of them, or whether we let John or cut it down to recommend?
Yeah. It's latitude I don't particularly want.
Yeah.
I'd much prefer that
Why don't we
that
just
you
see
folks
them all?
make the decision. If you'd like, I can, Bradley, Mark and I can provide you with a list or summary of the people
Yeah, I
interested.
think it would make sense for us to see all of them.
Yeah.
And then we can do our work to select 2. So, great.
Very good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Yeah.
Our next item is an update from the zoning board. Do we have someone here from the zoning board?
Good evening. I'm Steve Legassi. I've been on the zoning board for 18 years, and I'm the current vice chair.
Great.
Happy to answer any brief questions that you have.
Any questions, board? Can you give us just sort of an update of what's been going on with the zoning board recently? Anything we should know?
Nothing is really going on. We've met, I think last year we met 8 times.
Yep.
Last time we met was March. We'll meet again in August.
Okay.
Mostly it's, sort of the minimal agenda item, which is setback waivers.
Oh, okay. Any questions for Steve from the board? Okay, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Our next update is from Resilient Hartford. Someone here from Resilient-
Yes, I think zooming in will be Kyle Katz on behalf of Resilient Hartford.
Okay. They may have a presentation to show with Zoom.
Kyle, you are all set.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Sal, do you have a slideshow you want to share?
I do, yeah, and I apologize. I wanted to be there in person. I was not feeling all that great today. So
Yeah, that's no problem. I think if you're made, Nick, maybe you can tell me if he's made a panelist, can he then share his screen?
I believe I can, and I
Oh,
have
perfect.
the
There it is.
slideshow up. And I know that I have a short time period, so I'll try to make this around 5 to 6 minutes.
Great.
Just as an introduction, my name is Kyle Katz. I am the chair of Resilient Hartford. I've been on the committee for just about 2 years.
Great.
So to start us off, the mission of Resilient Hartford is to build a stronger, more cohesive and self-reliant community that is better prepared to face environmental, economic, and social challenges by engaging community members, organizations, and businesses throughout Hartford to work together. Some ways that we've been doing that are back in 2016, 2017, Resilient Hartford hosted a Resilience Week event and then held regular resilience workshops in the following years. And more recently, Resilient Hartford hosted Potato Fest. It was a competition of sorts, growing potatoes in all the villages in 2019. And then after that, we started work with the Clifford Park Food Forest. I just want to give a shout out to Matt Osborne. He is the staff planner that provides support for Resilient Hartford. He's been fundamental in organizing the meetings, assisting with work days, coordinating a lot of the work outside of the meetings as well. So that's been incredibly supportive. So just to dive in a little more on Clifford Park and the food forest work, you can see here we have the area outlined in red is the focus area for the food forest. We've planted numerous fruit and nut trees there, along with cover crops, guild plantings, and an Abenaki garden. Although that has since moved as a result of the 2023 flooding, it's now located in Quechee. And a little more on that in just a moment. So this is just an image of that area of the park prior to any of the planting. You can see it's quite brown and there's not much going on. A lot of the topsoil had been removed following Tropical Storm Irene, which left the soil very depleted, lacked organic matter, making it difficult for anything to really thrive here. So the first tree planting occurred in September 2021. You can see there's a large group of volunteers, some Resilient Hartford folks, all gathering to plant the trees. And then what followed was a guild planting. Now a guild is planting perennial herbs and other plants that can support the fruit trees in some way. Typically that would be improving soil health, providing ground cover, and attracting pollinators because those are crucial for pollination of the fruit trees as well. Here we have another image of the phase 2 tree planting in April of 2022. So we hold periodic work days throughout the summer. And then preparing soil for the fruit tree guild. You can see in the foreground, some soil has been tilled up, and then folks are going and planting those guild plants around the trees. Some common guild plants can include sedum and yarrow. And there's one of the pear trees that was planted. And then here we have some prep work for the Abenaki Garden. That had been located at the southern edge of the park, right by the river. But as I mentioned, due to the July 2023 flood, the Abenaki Garden has since moved to Quechee, where it's out of the floodplain. And then a ground cover that was planted, the Abenaki Garden. Here we have some soil prep for planting cover crops. Cover crops typically consist of a mix of legumes, grasses, and brassicas. Those all help to contribute to soil health that can subsequently improve the soil around the fruit trees and help them to thrive. Oh, here we have another image of the guild planting in the background. You can see those cover crops starting to take off. Some of the cover crops dying back in the fall, providing some late season color. And then another image of the cover crops as well. Here's some of the flowering plants. These are cover crops, so that middle one is one of those plants that provides those soil benefits. And then you see the sunflowers on the right-hand side. Here's an aerial image of the July 2023 flood. It really forced Resilient Hartford to re-examine, the work that we're doing and how best to move forward with the food forest. And part of that, what was generated from that is working to incorporate a riparian buffer along the food forest to help absorb some of that excess water when it does flood. And as a result of that, Resilient Hartford was awarded a $990 grant to plant additional trees and shrubs in the food forest. This has included plum trees, hazelnut trees, black walnut, chestnut, barnut, juneberry, and elderberry bushes. So we've held numerous work days throughout this spring and early summer, and we've planted all of these trees and shrubs out. They've benefited from quite a bit of rain that we've had so far, so it's been we've had some luck there. And then Resilient Hartford participated in the 2024 Community Resilience Building Workshop, the Wilder Club. And this event will help support our work when we develop the local hazard mitigation plan this fall. Okay, that's everything. So any questions, comments?
Questions from board members? Comments? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Kyle, Eric Krause here. Thanks to you and all the members of Resilient Hartford for the volunteer work that you do. My question basically is related back to your mission, which is incredibly broad, which I think is a good thing. And it seems like most of the focus currently is on the food forest. And I wondered if some of the other ideas that have percolated through the years in the past are going to be revisited, or maybe you're working on them already. One in particular that I have in mind is this. There was an idea years ago about identifying neighborhood captains as a way of building communication at the neighborhood level. And perhaps as a way of building social fabric and sort of activity and connections at the neighborhood level, which I think you would agree is important to resilience. Like we can't possibly imagine all the different scenarios that we need to bounce back from. But one of the common underlying themes is just our connections with other people and our ability to work together collaboratively. And so the neighborhood captains thing always stuck in my mind as an important element. So I'm not sure if you, having only been on the commission or committee for 2 years, maybe you haven't heard of it, but wonder if you could comment on that idea and some of the other work that you got that you're doing for that Resilient Hartford is doing. Thank you.
Certainly, yeah. that's certainly something that we can explore. I know, just in terms of bandwidth, we've been short several members for, I mean, since I've started. And so we have other ideas out there. It really just comes down to time and, volunteer constraints and how much time you have to be able to focus on things. And so we've really, when the summer seems to roll around, we're all just out there watering and getting the trees in the ground, and that ends up eating away at a lot of time. But the winter is definitely a time where we can start to branch out and focus on other things. One idea that has been percolating is connecting with, there's an Upper Valley Seed Savers group, and figuring out ways to provide local seeds in, whether it be libraries, creation of a seed bank, and ways to get that out to people. So there are other ideas. It's more just the time constraint that we run into, and because it's limited and finite. But that's an idea that I've noted down, and can bring it to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions from Kyle? Ashley?
Sure. Hi, Kyle. Thanks so much for your presentation. And sorry I wasn't able to make it to tonight's meeting. For those that don't know, I'm the select board liaison to this committee, which I'm really excited about. And I just wanted to update you and other folks in the town that I went culvert crawling yesterday. I don't know if you have heard about the initiative with a Dartmouth professor and students, as well as like John and folks from DPW have been involved to create an app that maps the culverts in the town. And so I'm really excited about this initiative. I'd like to get like an energy of like Green Up Day, because we have such an amazing like Green Up Day community work ethic. I'd love to get that going around culverts. And like, I know there's like talks of adopt a culvert, but also there's a lot of people that probably are responsible for culverts that they're not even aware of on their property. So anyways, just, yeah, wondering what ways your committee might engage with that process, or if you've heard about it yet.
I've heard of it. It's not something that we've engaged in directly, but we can certainly bring it up at a meeting and see if there are ways that we can get involved.
Cool. Yeah. And I'll try to
Yeah.
email you some info, and maybe we can chat about it at the next meeting.
Great. That'd be great. Thank you, Ashley.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for all the work you've done.
Ida?
Hi, Kyle, this is Ida. Just one more quick thought about, I heard you say that your committee's been short members for quite some time, and I wonder, you may be able to reach out to John and potentially work with JD on some strategizing around marketing your committee and, recruitment efforts, so you can have a fuller committee and more capacity to investigate some of these ideas. But yeah,
That would be
John,
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that's something JD could help with, John?
I'm sure.
Okay, great.
Great.
All right, thanks, Kyle.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is a reassessment update. We have Rick Vincent, our assessor here. Just got it. I don't know if it's Miranda, you or Nick. Honestly. There we go.
Okay. I don't have a laptop with me, so I can't bring the presentation up. I don't know if you can grab it off the agenda and pull it up.
We all have it, yep.
So I'll be brief on this. This is just a quick summary on the results of the reassessment project. There will be a full report coming from Tyler Technologies, the company that we hired to do the reassessment. So I'll be a much more robust report. So on the, I'll wait for you to pull it up. I know you're short on time, so I'll do this as quickly as possible.
Great.
All right, so on the first page here, you see the next page right there. You'll see the 2024 grand list value and the 2025 grand list value. This is actually the value, total value for the town in 2024 was $1.4 billion. But because of the tax rate being based on $100 per $100 of value, this is, I don't want things to get confusing. So I use the actual grand list value, which is 14,190,000. So it's 1/100th of the total total value for the town. In 2025, it went up to 26,142,000, an increase of 11 million, or actually almost $1.2 billion in value. The average increase in value turned out to be 84%. Was a little higher than that. And then we had our grievance hearings. So there were 580 total grievances. Out of those total 580 grievances, we had 356 changes to property values and 224 with no changes. In addition to those 580 grievance hearings, there were an additional 20 properties that were discovered to have errors in assessed values. So I changed those values when I had the opportunity. So it was a total of 600 properties that were reviewed either through grievance hearings or through my own reviews. We'll go to the next page. I think you're on it. Get my glasses on. Yep, you're ahead of me. Some of the properties experiencing the largest value increases were condominiums and mobile homes. Some of the what were the lower price condominiums back in 2018 at the time of the last reassessment quadrupled in value, went up 3, 4, or 5 times in value. That's due to the unusual demand and resulting increase in values once COVID affected property values. So I have 2 examples on the graph here. So it's 574 Willard Road, Unit 3F. That was assessed in 2018 at $50,100. It went up to $250,400, or a 500% increase in value, in assessed value. And then the mobile home, 24 Moosehead Way. The old value in 2018 was $91,800. And that went up to $231,000, or 252% increase. Now, these new values are based on, these aren't numbers that we're just grabbing, and we're not throwing a dart at a board on the wall. These are based on recent sales that occurred in Hartford over the last 2 years. And those new values have to be reflected in, those new market values have to be reflected in the assessed values. Common level of appraisal, and that is the measure of assessed values to market value. And the state just recently did their own study. They came up with CLA, common level of appraisal, of 103.42%. That's an interim CLA, which is used exclusively for education tax rates. So I did my own study, just a brief study. This isn't final. It's not the final numbers. Tyler Technologies will have the final numbers once they provide their report. But the goal of the reassessment project is to value all properties in a fair and equitable manner. The primary measures of equity are the median ratio, coefficient of dispersion, and the price-related differential. I'll explain those a little bit in just a few seconds. So the industry standards for acceptable measures are for median ratio 90% to 110%. So that's the average ratio. When we look at all the sales, we take all the ratios, the median ratio should be between 90% and 110%. If you look down below, the overall median right now is after the reassessment is 98%. That's the number I came up with, compared to the 103% that the state came up with. So they're still relatively close. I'm not quite sure how the state came up with 103%, but the 98% that I have is a result of looking at sales from April 1st of 2023 to April 1st of 2025. So the next one is the coefficient of dispersion, or the COD, and that should be below 20%. And we have 8%. Now that is a measure of the spread between all of the individual ratios to the median ratio. So at 8%, what that's telling us is that on average, the spread is 90% to 106% between the median ratio. That one's kind of difficult to explain, so I always stumble on that one. And then the price related differential should be between 98 and 1.03, and we're at 1.009. And what that does is measures the progressivity or the regressivity of the assessed values. So we don't want lower end properties to be overassessed, or same thing with upper end properties. They shouldn't be overassessed or underassessed. So this measures that tendency. So we're at 1.009. So that tells us that the assessments between lower end properties, lower value properties, and higher value properties are pretty even. So we have good equity there. I think that is the last page. Again, that's just a brief summary of the reassessment results. So are there any questions?
Questions? Board, public, Ashley?
Okay. I'm like, I'm always talking. Let Miranda go. Mine is pretty quick, I think. So first, thank you for your presentation and all the info. My question was just about, there was 580 total grievances, and 356 of those resulted in changes.
Right.
And my question is, is there any data on whether, I'm assuming those changes were to lower the value. I doubt people come in and ask you to increase their property value very often, or maybe they do, but
sometimes they do.
Yeah, I can see that making sense in some applications. But yeah, so I'm curious, can you tell us more about those changes? Like how significant were, like, is there a percentage that you have of roughly by how much? Yeah. Or
no, there's really no information to give on that. It could be a very small change, or it could have been a large change. It all depended on the property, what had to be changed, the information that we were provided by the property owner. So it could have been a matter of a few $100s, or if it was a large commercial property, it might have been millions of dollars.
Yeah. That's a pretty high rate of changes per the number of grievances, which makes me a little nervous, I guess, just that.
Well, no, that's common. And by the way, the 580 is about typical. We have roughly 6,000 parcels in town, so this is about 10%. Or I think we had 5,800, so it's right around 10%, and that's common. I think I had mentioned that in a meeting several months back. That's a common rate that we have for hearings. And the 300 and, I don't have that page here, the 300 and some odd.
356.
Yep. That's pretty typical.
Okay.
The percentage is pretty typical.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Board questions before we hear from the public?
Yeah, I was wondering too, looking at that reappraisal summary, like 20 properties were discovered to have errors in their assessments. And I was wondering like how you came about those like errors.
That was review work that I was doing while Tyler was doing their hearings. Some of those also came through the hearings. So say like for a condo complex, a couple of owners might come in and express concern and provide information that showed that we might have had an entire building misvalued. So they came in for their unit. We discovered that an entire building was misvalued for whatever reason. We found a commercial condo complex that was misvalued. So I made corrections to the entire complex.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thanks, Rick. Just a quick question. When the Tyler Technologies report is available, produced, will we have you back on the agenda?
I can come back if you want, but it'll be about that thick.
All right.
So I don't think you want me to go through that
No.
entire
No, I just
report.
didn't know if we were just going to receive a link to that, or if there might be an executive summary that we would digest and then discuss with you, or if there's merit to that.
Well, I'd be glad to meet again. So I think the key is to get the report. You can review it. And if you have any questions, I'll come back to answer the questions.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Rick. If a property owner still has a question about their value or believes there was an error but did not meet the deadline for this grievance process, but would like to address it next year, what is your recommendation of how best to communicate that? And also, how can we communicate to the public what the process is for like off-season corrections?
Yep. So the grievance process next year will begin, I believe, in May. So the best thing for the property owner to do is contact the assessing office in May of next year. We do have some that we've already spoken to some people. We've already got the information we need. So we started a file for those. But generally, they should just contact us in May.
Okay, thank you.
Public comment or questions? Sir, do you have? Oh, yeah, go.
Thank you, Laney Collins from Quechee. So in this report, we're looking at $2.6 billion, but this report lays it out in terms of millions. So
Right.
I would let this, if you're going to have this report go out, I would specify that it listed as 26,142,366, which is actually 2.6 billion.
Right.
So it's a little confusing for the uninitiated. So we might want to correct that when, before this goes out. The other question I guess I have is there's some discrepancies in the numbers here. There's 26,142,366 you have listed as a 2025 grand list value, but yet the board at their meeting where they set the tax rate based it on 2,614,549,5,000. And that's a difference where I come up with $183,500. So where's that difference? That's $183,500 worth of difference. So
There's a couple things on the finance side that took place before tax bills went out. First, we took the grand list values. Then we looked at the budget and the approved budget. The approved budget was adjusted twice.
Oh, I understand that.
Oh, okay.
Grand list values.
I
What I'm
see.
saying is just the grand list value numbers.
I see.
The grand list value numbers do not match. So did the select board set the tax rate on the correct grand list value? Because you're reporting in your report of a grand list value, which is different than what the select board set the tax rate on, and perhaps different than what the finance director came up with a calculation for. So we need to have a little more accurate numbers in terms of what number we have for a grand list value.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
Yeah, that would be good if you could get that straightened out. One of these two numbers is obviously wrong.
Yep. Okay.
And again, just in terms of clarity's sake, you need to have it stressed that this is 2.6 billion and not 269 million.
Yep.
There's a significant difference there.
Yep, understood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny. Other public comment, Tim?
Good evening, Tim Ferrier, White River Junction. I did quite a bit of review of the new assessments and the old assessments, and I appreciate all the work you guys do. If you recall last week, or perhaps the week before, I was requesting that we perhaps avoid this situation in the future where we were the lowest CLA differential in the state of 66% or something of that nature. And I think that's what became very problematic, obviously, for our town and our funding mechanisms and so on. What I find disturbing more than that, actually, and all the great work that happens and all the well-intentioned people that work for our town, is the concept of this misalignment between when we set budgets and when we figure out, you know, all these other things, the money we spend and the tax rate and so on. It just seems really kind of crazy for this little cute little state of Vermont that we now have a school budget set. And by the way, this impacts the school budget more than your municipal budget, because if you do the math and you go back to the finance director of the school, having a CLA at 66% versus 100% has a profound impact on the school tax rate, which, by the way, my current tax bill went from $8,000 to $9,000. Fine. I live in a nice house. The number is the number. But the reality is the school portion is 6,000 of that 9,000. So I think that what's happening here a little bit is we have a little bit of a decoupling between what you guys are thinking about and what the school is thinking about, and how those things come together in some coherent fashion. And I've always been troubled, and I was on the school board, I was chair of the school board, I understand school funding and financing mechanisms, but we are missing some alignment of your work, tax work, setting budgets, and figuring this stuff all out. And to me, as a citizen, and I'm reasonably well versed, I read all 423 pages, by the way, of your stuff tonight. It's crazy what we are doing as a community and as a state around funding, tax rates, and what goes on.
Tim,
To
I'm
me,
sorry
it's-
to interrupt you. I really appreciate your
I'm
comment.
out of time.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you, Tim. Any other public comment? Okay, thanks, Rick.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, our next item, you've got 50 minutes allotted for this. Generally, you want to see about 25 presentation, leaving 25 for questions and discussion. But this is a public-private partnership application regarding potential redevelopment of the Coolidge Hotel block. Let me just preface this for everyone watching, that if this project does eventually come to fruition, this is the first of what is likely to be many meetings, including public meetings. So tonight, we're basically getting an introduction, a little bit to the public-private partnership. And Lexi and Laura will tell us what they need from us tonight, if we feel like this can move forward. And we'll hear from the developer as well, with the proposal for the block. But I just want to reiterate, this is very preliminary. This is just, this is what we're thinking. If this goes forward, there will be a lot more work on the board with the developers and hearing from the public. So with that caveat, I will turn it over to Lexi.
Okay, I'm Lexi Webster, the Housing and Development Specialist, and I know that the board has read all the documents, so I'm not going to go through all the documents that were previously passed, like the PPP policy and the introduction to PPPs. Feel free to ask questions if you have any regarding those, but I'm not going to really spend much time on those since those have already been passed. But at this stage, the town has received the first PPP proposal, which is for the redevelopment of the Hotel Coolidge in downtown White River Junction. The first step in this process is benchmark level 1 that we outlined in the PPP policy, which serves to really just give an overview, gain clarification, understand the developer's vision and mission and what they are needing from the town to make this happen. This is all very preliminary and an overview. And how the project relates to stated goals from the town plan, how how the project benefits the public and citizens, and potential risk of the project. So at this stage, we are at the benchmark level 1. We want the select board to assess if this application answers all of the questions associated with benchmark level 1. At this time, there is no specific financial commitments. That could occur later, but at this level, there are no financial commitments. And the requested action from this is if the select board feels that this benchmark level 1 application is complete and answers all questions associated with level 1, that the application can move on to PPP benchmark level 2.
Okay.
So that,
That's our decision.
that is the decision. You are welcome to take more time with it though.
Okay.
If you would like to do that tonight and feel like it is complete, feel free, but it is not like it has to be done tonight. So it's really with your all's decision. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the developer, Adam Grounds, and property owner, David Briggs.
Can we get is it possible to get the slideshow up on the screen for the public to see? That might be helpful.
Adam has his computer.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Dave, please.
Good evening, David Briggs, White River Junction. This moment has been a long time coming. And I represent the landowner in a three-way discussion, which for the last a year or so has been defined as the landowner, the developer, and the town. And I've worked with town manager John Haverstock to work our way to this moment. Who would be the developer? And so it's my pleasure tonight to introduce you to my candidate to be the developer. I've issued or signed a non-binding letter of intent with him to be the lead player in this initiative. So I'd like to introduce you to Adam Grounds and tell you that I've been most impressed with the work ethic, the diligence, just plain intelligent approach to the whole thing. Developers come and go, and I've talked to a lot of them over the last 15 plus years. And I am very delighted to be working with Adam. So I would like to turn him over to you, and I look forward to the process.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you for the introduction, Dave. Let me just get these slides up. Okay, hopefully it's working for everybody. I'll self-time. I know we're running a little behind schedule, and so maybe I can make up a little of that time for everyone and get you home at a reasonable hour tonight.
Thanks very much. Just identify yourself for the record, please. Before you...
Yes, my name is Adam Grounds. I'm a developer from the firm Copperacre.
Okay.
Well, members of the select board, it's my honor to be here today, and thanks for hearing from me. I'm here to share my vision for the redevelopment of the Hotel Coolidge site. We've called this project the Junction House Project as an ode to the original building that was built on the site, the Junction House, back in 1849. Just to kick us off with a little historic appreciation, this actually was not the first building, but is a nice photo from the early 1900s or late 1800s. Before I begin, I just want to start with a thank you. It's been an incredible effort from so many people, and wanted to acknowledge them before I get going, many of whom are in the room today. And special thanks to Dave and Peggy, who have stewarded this very important property in White River Junction for many decades now. So thank you to Dave and Peggy, and for everyone who I've been meeting with quite regularly. Just probably a little tired of my emails, but we're going to keep them coming. The vision for the site really incorporates 4 synergistic elements. The first is, at the heart of the project, we want to create a new public place in the center of downtown. That's incredibly important to us in fulfilling a lot of the vision that has been put forth in town plans and regional plans. A place that people can gather, a place that people can spend time right in the center of town. And we view that as a way to really strengthen ties in the community and just create a kind of a new third place that's public, casual, but can also be used for events. Importantly, we want to contribute to creating new quality housing in a downtown walkable environment with access to municipal services and public transportation. And while that is an important part of the project, it's really all these elements together working synergistically that we think makes it interesting. At the ground floor, we want to be really embrace what's working really well already and try and take it to the next level and create a retail environment that will work nicely for small businesses. So a density of retail, quite a bit of new retail and commercial space to help the downtown economic base continue to grow. And last but not least is a very exciting part of this project that most people won't see because it'll be built largely underground, but it would be in conjunction with the Energy Commission, the development of green energy infrastructure in the form of geothermal district heating network infrastructure that could help the town of Hartford move towards its sustainability goals. Brief introduction to the development team. It's a relatively new company, but an experienced team. Over the last 5 years, myself and my partner have developed approximately 3,100 units of new housing around the country. But really, to me, what makes it special is my personal connection to the Upper Valley. I fell in love with the Upper Valley when I came to Dartmouth, and I actually met my wife in Dartmouth. Her family's been living in the Upper Valley for 60 years. I got married in the town of Hartford. So to me personally, the opportunity to contribute in a meaningful way to the built environment in the town of Hartford is what is special. That is my inspiration on this project. That is what's meaningful to me. And that's really why I'm here. I want to give a little bit of historic context. I'm going to breeze through some of these, happy to flip back. But I just want to acknowledge that so much has happened in downtown White River Junction over a number of decades. And I stand here today being able to benefit from so much work from both the public side and the private side. There's been an incredible revitalization effort that spanned decades, and any projects going forward from today are just the beneficiaries of that work. So I want to acknowledge that and frame this discussion as part of a long track record of work that's contributed to this area. Specifically, the different plans at different stages have called for public-private partnerships, which can hold the promise for developing sites like this. And the 2009 revitalization plan did specifically outline the Hotel Coolidge as a potential redevelopment site. The 2011 TIF district plan did call for a number of things that are part of this conversation. So in particular, like creation of parking as a way to enable future development and the importance of parking in developing other parts of downtown. And it did, one of the hoped outcomes that was stated in the TIF district plan was the development of this site. So again, I stand here today not with any bright, shiny new ideas, but just having adopted a lot of the work that others have done to date. And as someone trying to pick up the torch and carry it forward from where we stand. Highlight of a recent survey that was done last year, a vibrancy study for downtown White River Junction. It highlighted a number of issues, but the top 3 issues that were framed from survey respondents were a lack of parking, a lack of housing, and the state of infrastructure. And so my proposal will try to encompass a response to these elements. As many people know, there's a lot of things that are working great in the Hotel Coolidge today, but some things that are proving challenging. And my vision aims to embrace the things that are working well, offer them a platform to continue growing and thriving while solving for a number of the challenges that exist in the current conditions. The building is in somewhat of a state of kind of poor repair. The reality is that the operation of the hotel, although successfully carried out for many decades, simply can't produce enough revenue to cover the maintenance expenses of such an old and such a historic and large building. And so it's a challenging position that the building is in and that the owners of the building are in. But that's really why we're here today, is to think about the future of it. I've been meeting with members of the town staff, with stakeholders for actually approaching about a year now, since I went with Dana Clausen to the Efficiency Vermont conference last year as part of thinking about the geothermal project. So again, standing here today after many, many conversations, iterations of the vision, and excited to bring this forth. The project that can deliver in its kind of current proposed form, 95 units of housing, so high quality new apartments right downtown. Really quite a large amount of retail space. Right now, this block already has quite a bit of retail space. It makes up a majority of the downtown retail. And what I'm trying to do is find a way to deliver actually more, to get creative and create even more retail spaces so we have room for even more small businesses to help the entrepreneurial ecosystem here at White River Junction, Hartford in general, thrive. And notably, between the retail space and the proposal to create a public plaza in the heart of this project, I'm trying to take most of the site, the majority of the square footage of the site, and make it available for the public to enter and walk through and be a part of, and not try to close things off where it's just privately accessed areas. This is a quick massing study. A few things I'll highlight. It does largely follow the outline of the current building. Naturally, it follows the roads that are there. But two large changes. We would like to make a wider pedestrian alleyway along South Main Street and actually introduce a new pedestrian alleyway along Gate Street. The two of those would converge at a central location, this public plaza. We view the pedestrian connections here will effectively connect many different places in downtown. I think there's a lot of value in making these pedestrian connections more friendly and more accessible. But that's really the heart of this project here. Some inspiration photos, because it's always nicer than hearing me talk, getting to look at nice photos. The retail strategy revolves around having smaller format retail spaces, having more small businesses in downtown, each paying less in rent, but having a smaller space that's easier for a small business to step into. We want to create spaces that are right sized for new businesses to start, small businesses to grow, and overall for the small business ecosystem to thrive here. Just kind of a quick example of a very successful version of this model a little further south in Massachusetts. As a part of this, we've really tried to lean into the benefits that can be created through a redevelopment scenario. A number of them are highlighted here, but in short, the redevelopment of this site could produce a substantial increase in the grand list value of the site, ultimately allowing it to pay more in tax dollars each year. We want to introduce more spaces for small businesses, create new opportunities for jobs, introduce new housing, and really creating this new public place in the heart of downtown is something that's been called for in town plans for at least a decade and a half. And so trying to create that and taking on responsibilities related to programming and placemaking around that, we view as a public benefit we'd be excited to contribute. Sorry, the text is kind of small there. There's a lot of things that we're trying to do to align with stated goals from town plans, regional plans. But the reason I'm here today is because the redevelopment of the site as a purely private enterprise is simply not feasible. There's a number of reasons for that. Some of the high level reasons are here. It's expensive to build. This is one of the most expensive places in the country for new construction. A compounding factor is the fact that it's a tight infill site, which further inflates construction costs. It's still a high interest rate environment. The short version is the building once built will be worth less than it cost to build it. And so it's just a very simple way of phrasing the challenge we face. When it comes to parking, we would love to deliver, what I've talked about in a public plaza in the heart of the project. It's not physically feasible to deliver that and on-site parking in an affordable way. And so there is a parking challenge to solve for. There's been studies we've done to date on, just rough studies on cost for municipal parking below the site and what that could look like, or there could be opportunities to develop a parking garage somewhere in town or open to other creative solutions. But that is a challenge along with lack of common funding sources available in some other markets like new market tax credits. The redevelopment of the building in itself necessitates not utilizing historic rehab tax credits. Happy to speak about that. We've looked into what that scenario would look like. As well as I think everyone's aware, there's a general reduction in kind of funding opportunities available in today's climate. I've pulled some details on precedents that actually Lexi and Lori have previously shared. Happy to dive into these in more depth. But the things I've highlighted are just the level of kind of public support in funding that was made available for each of these. In both cases, it was kind of roughly, once adjusted for inflation, around $9 million to get these projects to work, and how they solve for parking, which I've highlighted as a challenge. In the case of Rutland, there is a state parking garage next door, and the strategy from the developer is to utilize vacant spaces in that existing state parking garage. In the case of St. Albans, the site is big enough and not in a downtown environment, so they can just do surface parking there. As far as next steps, we're working closely as a larger project team with town staff, landowner, energy commission to apply for grants to further our feasibility analysis. There's a number of grants we're figuring out how to apply for, but that is in the works. As was highlighted, there's no hard asks on commitments of funding. This is really the first of many conversations, and the next steps are all to further the feasibility analysis, figure out some of the components of where public support will be most effective and how things like parking can be, parking and energy infrastructure can be provided in a cost-effective and successful manner. Public input, super important to us, with this being such an important block, and a place that we want to provide a meaningful experience to members of the public. We really want to receive any public input. So this is just an open forum. Happy to share feedback I get through this forum with anyone, but it is just there. So anyone that has feedback, anyone that has input, anyone that has ideas, we're really receptive of that and value that input, and want to, in addition to making ourselves available through public forums like this, want to offer opportunities for that input. But the things to help us move forward in this process is any input or feedback that the select board might have as it relates to the role of the town and how active of a participant in a redevelopment the town might be willing to be. There's examples like St. Albans where the city has actually acquired property and taken an active role in helping prepare the site for redevelopment, which has proved very effective there. But any inclination, and this might be the subject of further conversations, but this is one of the things that will help us shape what the future looks like for going forward. And then also any input on investment levels that sound comfortable at its face, or locations for parking is something that we're hoping to explore through further feasibility study. But any input is valued. And I will say this is from kind of late 1800s or early 1900s, but just an imagining of what the future of White River Junction would look like at some point in the future. And I think it's a nice time for us standing here today, thinking about the same block picture, what we want the future of White River Junction to look like, what we want to be there. And so, well, this is fun. It's caused me to reflect and just think, when I look back, what kind of a project do I want to create that I can be proud of, where I would want to bring my family and I would want to spend time. And that's what I'm hoping to build, is something that's, for my family, for your families, where people can find meaning and can find connection. And so just want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you hearing me out, and I'd love to turn it over to questions, feedback, input anyone has.
Questions, we can start. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So can we just, and thank you for your presentation, Adam. Can we step through the financial estimates, the asks? So I think site prep was 6 to 8 million ballpark. Parking, two options, 13 million for sub grade and 4.5 for above grade ballpark. There was tax stabilization. I'm not sure if I caught an estimated value for that over the period that you were anticipating stabilization. And the other component that I'm unclear on is the financial commitment that would go into the thermal energy network, which I think might be contingent on some of the arrangements, which continues to be a question that I ask about on this project. And it's hard to be prepared to move to the next phase when that is such a big unknown for me. So those are at least some of the preliminary questions I have. I guess generally, and maybe I should preface with this, my comments, as I made to Mr. Briggs in the past, is I'm really excited about the public space aspect of the project. The housing makes perfect sense. The retail component to it makes perfect sense. The thermal energy network makes great sense from a thermodynamic perspective. What I need to understand better is what's the burden of taxpayers for that project, and what does that look like? What's the benefit to taxpayers, and what's the burden to taxpayers, and so on, and how it will be operated long term. And I know there's some options for someone else owning it, but I think we need to get into those weeds more. And on the parking, the idea of spending $130,000 per space on car storage, when I think the direction that we need to move is away from cars. We're not going to get rid of cars, and we're not going to do any transition rapidly, but we're talking about a major long-term investment. And so committing $13 million for 100 spaces seems to be counter to the direction that we should be pivoting, in my opinion. And so while I do appreciate that, and many informed people have told me we have a parking shortage downtown, I think that our bigger picture, not for your project necessarily, but for the town, more broadly is how do we solve that? How do we do two things at once? Sort of solve the immediate pinch and talk about other ways of mobility to downtown and throughout town, which is, I'm feeling a little like a broken record on that one, but that's why it makes it really difficult for me to say like 13 million for 100 spaces. That's a tall order, and even 4.5 million for 150 spaces or whatever is a tall order as well, when I think we should be doing short-term solutions because we need to force ourselves to do something different. So those are my initial comments. Thank you.
Yeah. No, and I very much appreciate the question, and I realized my end slide there is just sitting up there. So what I might propose is I'll answer your question, and then I'll take down the screen sharing so it can be in speaker view as we go through, if that seems reasonable to everyone. In response to your question, there's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation that's challenging in that the scale of any redevelopment really scales with the availability of parking. And so the number of number of new apartments created is going to be directly in some way correlated to the parking that can support that. And same thing applies to how much retail space. And, if you have spaces for small businesses, you need spaces for the, owner of that small business to park, their staff, people that are going to shop there. And so I appreciate the sentiment on parking in the direction everything's headed. And I think the challenge is right now figuring out what that right balance is on how we think about and plan for the future and what we need to provide today. And so the figures that I've put down here are necessarily a little bit vague. I can back up the numbers that are harder figures. I can provide backup on where does that number come from. The reason it's kind of a softer figure is because the elements of the project that are not necessarily things I, as the developer of kind of this private portion of the project, would be delivering, but things like the energy infrastructure will cause changes to what the total development cost is. And I can explain that further. And then also just the availability of parking will kind of scale things. So all the numbers are a little bit in flux until we figure out what we can do with parking and further some of the feasibility on the geothermal. Specifically in a scenario where you are demolishing the existing structure, what you're left with is a big old hole in the ground that you have to do something with. The ideal scenario would be utilizing at least some of that space to house, for example, like a pump station that would support the geothermal infrastructure. Refinishing the entire basement space would cost, on an order of magnitude of roughly $4 million. I'm trying to remember my numbers off the top of my head that we worked with a construction management firm to estimate. If you were just fill it in with dirt and compact it and build up, you're still going to be spending, $1.5 million to $2 million doing just dirt and filling it in. So that's where there's some variety in that number, and it's a softer range because there's further feasibility in conjunction with geothermal and a parking plan that would impact those numbers. My answer is perhaps a little bit of a non-answer, but that the reason there's no specific ask on financial commitments is because as some of these things get studied, as we continue having conversations like this, those details will get firmed up so that we can come back with more specific numbers and specific requests of commitment. And at the same time, it would be commitments on our side as the developer of what are we providing in a more detailed format.
I would also just like to note that in benchmark level 1, we are understanding what commitments and incentives the town is being asked to provide, but it is not until benchmark level 2 where the town would actually be prepared to offer those incentives. So at this point, it is very much a rough estimate, like Adam said, and just understanding more the overview of incentives or concessions the town's being asked to provide, but you're not actually having to commit to any firm numbers until further levels.
Great. May I respond to that?
Sure.
So specifically then, what is the ask with respect to the thermal energy network?
Yeah, great question. And to date, that effort has been largely led by the Energy Commission. And so Jess Pollard's been a great partner as we've moved through this process. And while we've had conversations with a number of different parties that could be the builder and operator of the energy network, that's one of the things that in the next steps needs to be further studied. And so I think the goal for us would be all of these pieces achieve some clarity over the next few months so that we can really solidify the numbers, solidify the asks, have full clarity of who are all the participants around the table. Because I'm here in the towns here, but there's a party missing, that being the energy partner in all this. That's not part of the public. And yeah, just if you had anything you wanted to add.
Yeah, sure. Just identify yourself.
At the mic, yeah, or they can't hear you on Zoom.
Hi, my name is Jesse Pollard. I currently chair the Energy Commission. I've been working with these fine folks for the better part of 2 years now on this idea. So we last presented to the select board earlier this year about the findings of the feasibility study we did with Oak Ridge National Labs prior to the current administration. Since then, we want to kick off another feasibility study, but we want to understand what the scope and magnitude of the redo is it 3 floors or 6 floors? All those numbers have been thrown out and they all come back to parking, because under the current code, the magnitude of this project is a function of parking. So that, I think I'd recommend coming to phase 2 of what you're asking for, so that we can have those discussions about what kind of parking solution, if there is to be one required, so that we can further that geothermal discussion as well.
Can I jump in on that while you're up there, Jesse? Is it fair to say that without a redevelopment of this block, discussions of a geothermal network would become less promising?
So other towns in Vermont are having this same conversation, but the difference between Hartford and those towns is that they don't have a anchor project in their downtown area that would provide a cost-effective opportunity to install this type of infrastructure. It becomes a lot more expensive when you have to reconfigure existing infrastructure buildings, convert existing buildings from oil furnace, wood, what have you not, into district heating. And that's where a lot of towns in Vermont are going to find roadblocks, right? The federal funding just isn't out there. State funding, likewise question. So it becomes so much more on the town to determine what values it's willing to stand up for and finance themselves in partnership with the private sector. So I would say if the Coolidge block does not include district heating, there will not be district heating in downtown Junction.
Questions, comments?
Lenny Collins, Quechee. As a former select board member, I've sat through a bunch of presentations about this, but this is the first time I've heard the term come up, brownfields, when dealing with this property, when discussing this property. And brownfields are properties, industrial or commercial, abandoned or underutilized due to actual or perceived environmental contamination. I was not aware that there was any contamination within site. So, I mean, where do we get the term brownfields from in terms of, is there contamination within the site? And if there is contamination within the site, that's going to be on the town of Hartford to be on the hook for further contamination down the road. If this goes off and we accept responsibility for that, I mean, it's a big ask if we're looking at contamination. I know that we've had contamination from, used to be a former dry cleaners in the town, and that's maybe what we're talking about here. And I don't know whether there's been soil samples have been taken or not, but that's a big ask if we are actually finding contamination.
Is that okay to respond?
Yep, absolutely.
So to date, we are not aware of any significant environmental contamination. It being an old building, there is certainly asbestos and lead paint that would need to be remediated before or even in a reuse situation. So there's some level of remediation of those environmental contaminants, but that's it can be pricey, but is a relatively understandable risk. At the moment, we've seen a couple years old, but a clean phase 1 report that would indicate that there's not significant environmental contamination on the site to be concerned of. I will note that there are nearby buildings that have found environmental contaminants or are in need of brownfield remediation. But to our knowledge, this site would not fall under that category.
Why did you use the term?
If I did, it was maybe mistaken. Okay. Is it? Okay, my bad.
No.
Sorry.
Looking at the documents that you provided for the agenda, it looks like that the brownfield was mentioned in regards to the St. Albans project.
So that's based on a precedent in St. Albans. So the city of St. Albans purchased a former manufacturing facility and spent approximately $6 million over a number of years back in, I believe, 2007 to about 2011, remediating the site and enabling future development. So that was a precedent in another city, just showing a public-private partnership that's been structured as a result of that investment that the city made in that site. So not a reflection on this site, just an example of another public-private partnership that actually Lori and Lexi had previously documented as a good precedent to look at for the structuring of these partnerships. But I appreciate the question. Thank you. It's certainly top of mind and a great risk to consider.
I think we have some, okay, Tim, come on.
Tim Ferry, Waver Junction. I am extremely excited to have this caliber of person coming to our town wanting to do a redevelopment effort. I think it's a great step forward. I'm trying to temper that enthusiasm with economic reality related to us as a town and as a school with the challenges we have moving forward around what we need to fix or repair or resolve. And again, I emphasize the importance of the town and the school interfacing with some of their challenges on the Hill versus what we have as a town as well. I wanted to get up tonight partly to suggest that one of the challenges I see is that at the moment, and David, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but your current property was assessed at $1 million, and with the reassessment, it's at $1.9 million. And I think the reality as a select board, you have to kind of weigh these economic kind of cost risk things. And I would be curious to get more detail related to, if indeed there's a 10-year kind of tax relief model, that remaining 10 years of the 20-year kind of scenario, what that looks like. To try and give you perspective and example, Mike Davidson's property in downtown Waver has 59 units of apartments. They originally was assessed at 6.7 million. I think it's just moved up to 11.2 million. So I'm only asking all this because you really have to look at the delta as a town. That is to say, hey, yes, we'll do a $4.5 million parking facility or whatever. And then weigh that with the value points on the other end as a town for what you get for tax value. And I'm saying there's other intangibles that are very valid and important here, but I think you have to really get a lot more data and details around the economics of the value of the project, the potential for taxes and so on. So that's all. That's what I wanted to bring up tonight.
Thanks, Tim. And it's good to raise these questions. I mean, these are the questions that are going to come up as the project moves forward. I think we have some people on Zoom who want to comment, and then maybe if the select board, we can decide what we'd like to do next.
Should he be able to give a response?
Sure, yeah, give it a chance.
I full-heartedly agree with what Tim has raised as a question and concern. I would actually suggest that the state of Vermont has some incredible consultants that the town has worked closely with that can help represent the town in the structuring of this and make sure that it's a economically good deal for the town. They've been involved in the precedents that I've listed that Lori and Lexi also listed as you were structuring this policy. And it's the same consultants that have helped with the TIF district plan and the work that's gone into that. So kind of in the bench strength of the town's consultants, you have subject matter experts that I think would be happy to assist. It's not my place to suggest working with them, but I know that it would be, I think, beneficial to all to have a strong consultant that's very experienced in this as a part of kind of a project team evaluating the work we're doing and ensuring it's truly beneficial to the town.
Thanks, Adam. Joan, if you'd like, please come up to the microphone.
Hello? One more second.
Hold on, we got one more person in person and then.
Joan
we'll-
Ecker, I live in Quechee, but I'm also very involved in the town of Hartford and in the theater, and grateful for David for holding on to this building for this long. I do have very preliminary questions, and those are about the look of what we're doing or hoping to do. And I know the fear from a lot of people in the neighborhood is we don't want it to look like Hanover, New Hampshire. How do we keep it affordable for artists who are struggling, who need places to show their work? That's what's been the culture of this town that's made it be this revitalization that we've had so far, that's made it look wonderful. And also about housing, that affordable housing is a funny term. And I think we have to really evaluate what we mean by affordable housing so that it's possible for, and I could use Mike Davidson's house project as an example. $1,900 for 350 square feet isn't affordable housing in my mind. So I just want to keep an eye open for what it's going to look like, that we maintain the cultural integrity of the town, and that we keep it affordable for those who have made it be what it is.
Thanks, Joan. I think those are important concerns, and ones the select board will keep in mind as this project moves. So I would say let's hear from folks on Zoom who have public comments or questions, and then we will decide what we as a board want to do beside it tonight. Miranda, who?
All right, Mike, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Mike Morris, Hartford, Vermont. Following up, Tim, I think you would have thought you and I would have talked before this meeting, but we haven't. The 10-year stabilization tax, I don't know how that'd be handled. We're trying to make things affordable in the town of Hartford, not more expensive. They talk about the parking lot being 4.5 million above ground. The last estimates I heard about 6-7 years ago was $8 to $12 million. I don't know where these numbers came from. Waiving water and sewer fees when we don't know exactly what that amount is. I think there should be some preps there where telling us what do we estimate the usage is going to be. And then the construction for municipal parking, what is it really going to cost the taxpayers? And what is the taxpayers going to gain from this whole thing? Is this, I'm sorry to feel that, is this best for the developer and the landowner, or is this best for the town of Hartford? And I really think we need to balance that out. I'd like to know where any municipality, even before, has co-owned a piece of property, if that's the way we want to look at it. I don't know how we want to look at it, and how it's beneficial. Those are answers that I can't even think about. And I want that to be brought forward. Where is this going to gain the town? So as taxpayers, municipalities, we're growing, want welcome housing, but real numbers, please.
Thank you, Mike. And
thank you.
You know, it's important to bring these questions up. And you know, as we know, this whole public-private partnership, there's 3 levels, right? There's 3 benchmark levels. And as you move forward in the project, we're going to get more specific. We're going to get more numbers, you know. So I think it's good at this point that we have the concerns raised and the issues that are brought to us, so that, you know, look, we're a long ways away. But I appreciate everyone bringing up these concerns at this point. Miranda, anyone else?
That's it. Maybe one super
Yeah,
quick
go
one.
ahead.
One of the things that might feel kind of messy in the process right now is there are numbers in here that feel a little vague, or like there could be a moving target. And really that's a result of us trying to go public with everything at this stage. In other towns and cities, what they would do is have closed room conversations for another year. And we all felt like it was important, given the importance of this block to the town, to come out in the open and have these conversations in public. And, you know, we can all see how it gets made. So it is a partnership. And the fact that we're having these conversations in public is exciting and a part of this process and creating something that we'll all find meaning in. So I appreciate the question. I appreciate it's a very valuable question. And I'm looking forward to finding all the answers together to make something we find great and that works well economically for the town.
Thanks, Adam. And I do agree. I mean, you need the public support on something like this. And I think having this out in the open at this point is much better than if we did executive sessions and then out of the blue said, here we are, we're at benchmark level 3, you know. So I think this is important as part of the process. So for the board, and we don't really have to, like we heard from Lexi, we don't have to decide this tonight. we can, whether this should go to level 2, we can ask some more follow-up questions and stuff. But it looks like what we basically need to feel confident about before we move it to the next benchmark is 6 things, right? What's the mission and vision? What are the developer's qualifications? What commitments and or incentives is the town being asked to provide? How will this project benefit the public and its citizens? What are the potential risks? And how does the project align with goal strategy defined in an adopted town document, right? So those are the things we have to feel like at this level, we've gotten enough information on that we can go to the next level. And this is sort of the opening level, right? Just sort of these basic baseline questions that we need to feel like we have a good handle on. So, I mean, it's one of those, we can say, look, we're gonna review everything again in the context of these questions. We're gonna get some more information if we have it. And then maybe at the next meeting, we can just have a quick, should we move this on to benchmark level 2? Or we could do it tonight. It's kind of up to the board and what we feel like and how comfortable we are right now with moving on this, or if we still have some questions or we'd like to get answered before we take it up at a future meeting.
Yeah, I have one question. Adam, thank you so much for that presentation and for the heart that I can see from being in the same room as you that you are bringing to this project. My question might be for David or you, and it's just one that I've been asked by community members. I don't think it's specific to the public-private partnership of this, but rather any redevelopment of the block, which is what will happen to the frequented businesses like Tucker Box and you know, Jam and all of these other like downtown areas while this redevelopment is happening. Yeah, what will downtown look like throughout the project construction? And how do like business owners downtown feel about that, or do they have plans, I guess, to accommodate?
And I'll certainly let it go to Dave so he can offer any of his input. I will say that I mean, it's a challenge of any construction project, much less a construction project in a tight infill location. How do you effectively manage a construction site to minimize disruption to those around you? And there's no easy answer to that, other than it's incredibly important to find partners that are very experienced that can help manage that. So working with the right construction team that can be, you know, a great resource and partner through this project and actively communicate as things go. With respect to individual businesses, all the businesses you listed are in the adjacent building that nothing will happen to, but
Right, okay.
the businesses that are in the Hotel Coolidge are incredibly valuable businesses, and you know, we want to retain them there on the block. We want to make a new and better home for them and businesses like them. I think there's some questions to answer on how can we help kind of protect and conserve their businesses during a construction period, and that's certainly one of the questions we'd like to, you know, explore further. It's one of those things that at the moment, without some level of public support to be further clarified in the future, there is no project, and so we don't want to waste the time of business owners trying to figure out what a plan is for them to, you know, save a business if we don't even have a project that can actually move forward. So it's something we're incredibly sensitive to. You know, I have family members that are small business owners. I know the challenges you go through in starting a business and running a business. I saw my parents go through that process. And so I'm very sympathetic to the challenge that comes with this and the disruption that it can cause in downtown. But I will say during the construction period, at least, we'll try and move forward as quickly as we can. Other projects find financial feasibility by phasing things, and what we don't want to do is phase it and have a 4-year construction period. We want to try and, you know, rip the Band-Aid off, go in once, build something new and great, and be in a new stabilized place. So you proposed some great questions. I don't have answers to all of them today, but if you have anything else.
Well, I'm just going to clarify. So the construction of this building it's not like necessarily going to affect neighboring building. It's not gonna, I think when people think of this, they're like, is it just gonna like shut down all of Main Street? Like, is there gonna be any vitality down there, which you mentioned as a risk to the project?
And I think that's the challenge is in this block. The Coolidge Hotel represents a substantial percentage of the retail in downtown White River Junction, and so it will inherently be disruptive, especially for the businesses that currently call it home. So there is a solution that we'll have to come up with to, you know, protect what's there and ensure that there's a, you know, even a better landing space for them when a new building gets built. But that doesn't mean that all the businesses in downtown shut down as a result of this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Actually, in your comments, you mentioned Tucker Box, for example, and I'm surprised every day as to how few people stop to realize that there are two buildings here. One is the Gates block, one is the Coolidge block. This is all the Coolidge block. The Tucker Box is in the Gates block. So it is half of that block, but it's only half. It's not both sides. So good communication as we go through these steps. I like Tim Ferriel's comments about more data is needed. I like the way Eric approaches it analytically and with respect to things like the cost of parking. I've been the champion of underground parking there because there's only one chance in the history of the world to get this parking there if we're going to do it. So this is a time we have to address it. If we go into a knee-jerk reaction that it's just plain too expensive, too quickly, we lose that opportunity forever. And to do the math outwardly, $13 million for 100 parking spaces is $130,000 per spot. When you think about the intrinsic cost of anything these days, we used to think $100,000 was a lot of money, but a parking spot that lasts forever, that might not be crazy. Now that said, I'm working with a personally commissioned and paid for value engineering study to see if we can work that number down. And I've engaged Bread Loaf in ECI of Burlington and the geotechnical consultants that are part of the faculty at Norwich University to try to chisel that number down. So if as we go through this process incrementally, we're just going to keep peeling off more and more data to make it more and more clear as to what we're really talking about. And I know that Vermonters don't like the idea that we say we're going to rely on federal dollars necessarily. It's part of our culture to be self-sufficient, but there could be some federal dollars in some of these grants programs that keep the burden off the people of the town of Hartford. So one point to put it in perspective, when Rick was talking about the assessment, he mentioned $191,000 property that's a mobile home. So who would have ever thought that a mobile home property would be $191,000? So when you start to think of intrinsic values, maybe $100,000 for a parking space that serves the community forever is not that far out. And I'll finish with one reference to Mike Morris's comments. He's fully aware of what happened with the village, for example. The last year that property was owned and I was part of the ownership, we paid the town of Hartford $2,500 in taxes. This year, that property will pay $500,000. That's what inspires me. My tax bill on the Coolidge block after the reappraisal didn't go up this year, and I will pay something a little less than $40,000 in taxes. Even after the stabilization is factored in, we're looking at something on the order of 6 to 8 times that as what the yield is. So when you ask the question, what are the taxpayers of the town of Hartford get? This is an economic development play. And sure, I'm standing up for it with the excitement of an entrepreneur. Am I going to do better personally than if I just dealt it off? Yes, I probably will do better if we succeed. But I get excited as a native son as to what this means to the overall contribution to Hartford economics. So stand by for more data, as Tim says.
Thanks, Dave. So I think board question a little bit is, we want to sit on this and next meeting we decide if it goes to level 2, or do we want to make a motion that we found that this initial application suffices to move to level 2? I just open it up if anyone has any thoughts. I'm perfectly happy either way.
Vice Chair, thank you. I think I understood that that with a project like this, that the parts are interdependent, and when you shift one thing, something else changes, like with the economics of it. I guess I more deeply appreciate the parking component to that after tonight's discussion. I mean, I knew parking was a part of this equation, but what I thought I heard was until we understand the parking capacity that we can build, we don't know how big the building is going to be. So we don't know what the thermal energy network is going to be, how large that might be, or that's a component to understanding that. So everything sort of comes back to like understanding parking and what we're willing to commit to on parking in the direction that we want to go on parking. So I think that's maybe where we should focus our attention. And if we're comfortable with the two options that have been presented, then maybe we have sufficient information to say, sure, this should go to benchmark level 2. I'm pretty excited about the project in general. But parking is the area where I struggle. And so that for me is like it's the cornerstone of everything else. And so I'm feeling like I'd like to hear from the rest of the board on, do either of those options, are you ready to go with just those two options? Should we try to explore other options? Are there other lots, for example, in town? Recently, someone explained to me the potential for extending Railroad Row and putting a parking lot out there, which was a conversation that happened years ago, and I'm not sure of all the history behind that. But if that were a potential, and if that were a $2 million solution that then sort of relieved the burden on South Main Street, would that be part of an overall solution that we should be considering? And I don't want to turn this into like a year-long parking study that basically then delays the project, but we kind of need to understand what our comfort level is with, are we ready to say like a $4.5 million option or a $13 million option ballpark, or could there be other options that we should take a quick perusal of before we give a more clear signal to the private sector?
Right. I appreciate that, Eric. I feel personally, I do have questions about that. I don't think those questions would prevent me from voting to move this to level 2. I think that they've met their burden to go to the next step, and this is a 3-step at least process, I feel like I have plenty of questions, but I don't think any of them would prevent me from saying they've made an initial showing. This is serious enough that we should take it to benchmark level 2 and continue the work that's been done. That's my feeling. Whether we do that tonight or next week I'm flexible either way, depending on what the board's pleasure is.
I think I agree with you, Mike. I feel like the 6 questions that we're looking at for benchmark level 1 have been answered very thoroughly, in my opinion. I'm excited for the project. I also have concerns about parking and just thinking about what do we want the future? You posed the question of what do we want the future of our downtown to look like? I'd like to see less cars. But I think you're taking the feedback that we're giving now. And so when you come back for benchmark level 2 and you've answered those next questions, I'm hoping that maybe we'll have maybe some more research or options for parking or yeah.
Ashley.
I think I'm just echoing mainly what others have said, and I don't know. I think I look to you, Lori, and your department as potential experts on. I'm sure you've had these many conversations around parking, but I think hearing more specifically, I guess my question is this: so for 4.5 million estimate, are we talking about a specific location? Are we talking about the triangle parking lot? I know we're not there yet, but what are the options for locations for above ground parking garage? And as Eric mentioned, are there other ideas that have fallen by the wayside over the course of the last couple of decades that could be re-examined that wouldn't have a major impact on the sort of visual nature of downtown and would provide some kind of holdover parking as we explore more alternative transportation options? So yes, I agree with those questions, and it does seem like they're sort of key to next steps. And if you all are amenable to kind of bringing back more concrete information and options in that range, then I'm comfortable with moving this forward to the next phase.
I have very similar sentiments. I guess I would just confirm with maybe Lori, planning if we pass it through to level 2, does it eliminate any options outside of the 2 parking options that are?
No.
Yeah.
I think what we're talking about, and we do have quite a history on parking. As we've talked about over the course of the last several meetings as well. And there is an opportunity to pull that all together. I think also what we've talked about is the feasibility analysis, additional feasibility analysis that the developer wants to do has parking as a premier thing. And looking at all of the different components of that. How does it get, what should it be? Where should it be? How does it get financed? And that's going to take a little bit of time and some commitment of some resources to do that. But that would be the kind of thing we would want. And it opens it up. It's not just 2 options. It's each option could have 4 or 5 different approaches to it.
Awesome. Thanks.
I know that there's, I mean, you can kind of go down rabbit hole, get into the weeds on it right now. I look at this particular question tonight as sort of like procedural. Did we get a sense of the mission and the vision?
Mm-hmm.
Do we know what the developer's qualifications are? Do we think it would, benefit the public? Are we aware of some of the risks and open questions? And would this align, particularly with like housing and energy, with some of the commitments in our existing plans? So I feel like, though there are questions to be answered, like I think they've shown enough that we can tell them now, let's take it to level 2. There's stages, and each stage, we're going to get more info, we're going to have more questions. And we just kind of, it's a process, and this is the start of it. Okay.
All right, Tim Ferrier, one more time. I wanted to add the concept that this can be multilinear in terms of like the process forward, right? Because I'm sort of have the vision of that if we indeed developed a 2-decker parking thing in White River, that might be another opportunity for another development effort, right? So you could kind of, append onto what they're doing with another inspirational project. If you think about Northampton, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, there's a lot of towns in New England that you can go around to and see where the parking component ended up feeding into some really great opportunities for new development work. If they don't want to do a boutique hotel, perhaps somebody else does that complements that parking. So I think it's a really positive move to try and move this forward and think about it in a more open platform and hopefully get to a great solution. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
I would say board, we either say we think it's enough to a motion now, or we'll bring it up next meeting. I mean, we're a little over the time on this.
Lori has said she'd welcome a motion if you want to take it to the next step.
Motion, right?
I move that the board approve the private partnership application for level 1 for the Coolidge hotel block and allow it to proceed to level 2.
We got a second.
I'll second.
All right, Ashley, any discussion? I'll call a roll. Eric?
Aye.
Miranda?
Aye.
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
I will vote aye. All right, thanks very much, Adam. and
Thank you,
David,
everybody. I
everyone
appreciate the time and
joining
feedback.
tonight. Yep, thank you. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, then we're gonna come back. I think we can get the rest of the agenda knocked out fairly quickly.
And thank you for your patience for folks who are here for
Yes.
future agenda items.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Okay, everyone, we're back from our break. Our next item, consider proposals to provide water and wastewater service to 2 Norwich properties. And again, I will preface this, sort of like I did last time, is that we're not voting on whether to actually provide anything to hook any businesses up. This is sort of, John will give us some background information. If we feel like it's worth getting some more information and having him do that work, we can authorize him to do that. If right now 4 of us said there's no way on earth I'm ever voting to allow Norwich to get any use of our wastewater or water systems, then basically this item goes away, right? So just for everyone watching, we don't have any proposal to actually hook anyone up. This is just some background information that'll allow us to decide whether we want to know more, whether it's worth considering this and taking further steps to learn more about it. So John, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And in the interest of brevity, and as we're trying to do more and more, I'm going to assume the select board and a lot of the people out in the public have read my memo, which sets out this situation. But to boil it down to its essence, I've been approached by the Norwich Farmers Market and Twin Pines, who together have requested that the town consider providing water and wastewater connections just over the town line, which separates our 2 neighboring towns. They're each prepared to provide remarks to you as to how this could help projects that they'd like to move forward with. If the board is agreeable, again, as Mike says, all we would be doing would be further exploring feasibility of providing town water and sewer just across the town line into Norwich. And when we do so, when we would study that, we'd want to ultimately make sure that it's a moneymaker for the town in terms of helping reduce the burden on ratepayers in Hartford, and that our infrastructure, if it needs to be upgraded, would be done so solely at the expense of these 2 entities. They're well aware of that. We have Chris Holsworth here, who probably knows as much about feasibility on this topic as anyone. For now, I would suggest that we simply hear from Twin Pines and the Farmers Market about what they have in mind. By the way, I should point out the town of Hartford currently has 2 customers in Norwich, a family place and the Universalist Church. Unitarian Church.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. Andrew Winter, Executive Director of Twin Pines Housing Trust, and I'm here with Peggy Allen from the Norwich Farmers Market. I'm just going to speak a little bit about our project. Peggy's going to speak a little bit about the Farmers Market project, and then we're going to open it up to questions, of which I'm sure you have many. Just a little bit about us. We've been in front of you before, 35 years old, 665 units of housing, rental housing in the Upper Valley. We do not have any rental housing in Norwich. I say that as a Norwich resident for the last 5 years. I'm excited about the idea of bringing affordable housing to Norwich. It is something that I've heard from people in this room that have said to me, Norwich really needs to do its share. I agree. And this is an opportunity to work with the town of Hartford to help enable housing in Norwich. Right now, Norwich has one 24-unit senior housing project. I serve on the board there, full disclosure. And it also has a 14-unit home ownership project that Twin Pines stewards as well. But other than that, there is no other general occupancy rental housing. So the site that we're talking about, I'm going to step, actually, I'm not going to step, I'm going to sort of do my best to point from here. This is Connor Court. And here, running north-south, is Route 5. And the parcel that we're talking about is that sort of L-shaped parcel shown with a blue arrow. The Unitarian Universalist property, it has the existing building, the Unitarian Universalist building that was built 10 years ago. I'm looking for folks to nod yes, about 10 years ago. It does have water and sewer. So this is an existing parcel in Norwich that has water and sewer to it. We have been in conversations with the Unitarians about potentially using a portion of the site for housing. Why?
there's an existing water and sewer line that runs along Palmer Court. There's a 6-inch water line, 8-inch sewer line that serves the existing Hartford businesses in addition to the Unitarian Universalist. There's a fire hydrant right about where we'd probably put a driveway.
Adam, I hate to interrupt you. I just got a message wondering if you could speak a little louder into it.
Oh, okay, sure. Sure. So there's an existing fire hydrant on the Norwich side of the property as well. And so this is a site that if there is a willingness to explore, we would very much like to move it to the next step. So today is a little bit about, like the last presentation, about lots more work to come. This is really about, we're here to have this conversation to see if there's an interest in facilitating affordable housing in Norwich. Water and sewer are critical elements. For those of you who read the Valley News, you know that Twin Pines has struggled with projects in other communities, whether it's Woodstock, Vermont, or New London, New Hampshire. There's a lot of risk without public water. And that's something that we're not prepared to do. So this is sort of a really sort of pivotal decision point when we come to you to say, is this something you're willing to explore? If not, no harm, no foul. We'll take the ball and go home and try to find another project. But folks have said to me frequently, again, people in this room have said, Norwich really needs to do its part. We need water and sewer to do that. So I'm gonna just pivot for a minute to Peggy and let her talk about her project, and then we'll go ahead and take questions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I know it's been a long night, and I'm hoping I'll speak up. My name is Peggy Allen. I'm a Hartford resident. I am also the co-owner of Junction Fiber Mill, which is directly across from Town Hall. We employ 10 employees, so we're very invested in Hartford. But I stand here with a different hat on. I was a vendor at the Norwich Farmers Market for years, and I was on their board for several years. The Norwich Farmers Market, yes, it's called the Norwich Farmers Market, but it is the farmers market for the Upper Valley. It is the most successful farmers market in the state of Vermont, and it enjoys extraordinary success. On a good Saturday, anywhere from 2,000 to 2,500 people attend. There is no other activity in the Upper Valley that congregates people in such a social way as that. It is one thing that's distinct about the Norwich Farmers Market. It is dedicated to agriculture. It is not a food court. It is committed to at least 67% ag. It is a vital outlet for the farms in our region. For some of our farms that have a regular slot, it represents 50 to 75% of their annual income, which a lot of people don't realize. The farmers market generates about $2 million, $2 to $2.5 million, and the biggest so it's an incredible success. The problem is a lot of locals are choosing not to go because the parking is dismal. So their parking is an issue. The other issue is along Route 5 is wetlands. If there's any kind of a rainy season, which we have just been experiencing, trucks are getting stuck, vendors are knee deep in mud, and it can't be fixed. By the way, we lease the property from the co-op. They're great landlords, but there's no improvements going to be taking place. The only other problem that we have in the summer market is we need a little more elbow room. We don't need to double the size. We just need a few more feet so the vendors have a little more space. That's the summer market. The real problem is the winter market. The farmers need that winter market as they've expanded with hoop barns and extended their growing season. We're at Tracy Hall, not enough space, zero parking, and no control of the calendar. So the real problem is the winter market. Directly across from the summer market is a 35-acre parcel that's been on the market for more than 8 years. When I first started looking at it 3 years ago, it was on for $1.5 million. That's an impossible number. Fast forward, we got it down to a price that we could live with. We got a purchase and sale in hand for $750,000. The big drop. We don't need 35 acres of land. We just need that open field. So the moment that it started to look like we were going to get some action, I reached out to Andrew and I said, Andrew, let's make the very best, highest and best use for this property. Let's move the farmer market
build a building for the winter market, and let's create some affordable housing. By acquiring this 35 acres, which is going to be contiguous to the Unitarian property, Andrew can now acquire some of the land that we're buying in that 35 acres that would enable him to go from being able to only do like 8 units to more like 24 to 30 units because of the density of the land. So it's not talking about putting affordable housing all across that hillside. It just enables Andrew to make a more efficient use with what he has with the Unitarians. The market needs water. The current land, you look at it, you go, well, why don't you just do a septic field? We've tested it. We cannot get sewer and water on the current lot. So the farmers market also needs the water and sewer, mostly the sewer, if we're going to build the 7,000 square foot pavilion that would be utilized for the winter market. So that is me talking 100 miles an hour. What I will say is the farmers market turns 50 next year. This market that represents the Upper Valley deserves a permanent home. With the price of land going the way it is, there's no reason why someday the co-op wouldn't say we have a better use for the land, and we'd be out of luck, which is exactly what has happened to other farmers markets in the region that get the land pulled right out from under them. This is an opportunity to give this market a permanent home. What I will also say is if we build the 7,000 square foot building, we will then have a place to host agricultural education. The whole idea then would be to make it much more vibrant. It's not just a once a week, it's a community place with parking and a building that can be utilized for an unbelievable amount of projects and things that would support the community. Yeah.
So as I look here with Peggy, I realize one of the things that I wanted to talk more clearly about is where the connections would be. So the concept is that bringing a line up from Palmer Court across the Unitarian property and into the meadow area that you see. The building that Peggy's talking about building would be in the middle of that. So the idea is that we would own it, we would build it, we would maintain it, we'd be responsible for it the same way that anybody else with a lateral water line or sewer line is responsible for it. So we're bringing that up and then again, allowing Peggy potentially with your approval to hook in as well. This avoids construction on Route 5, which is a much more complicated situation. So again, that's the idea. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. We don't really want to do that unless you all say, hey, we're interested, bring us more information, because it does cost. From here, we spend thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, but you are the first stop. You are the stop that we're making. I did talk to the planning officer in Norwich yesterday to just say, hey, this is coming. Don't be surprised, but you all are the first official body that we're talking with to kind of see if there's interest, because without the water, it is potentially not possible to do what we're trying to do here. So thank you.
Questions or comments?
I have a few. Thank you guys for your presentation. Peggy, it was really exciting to hear. I didn't know some of those facts about the farmers market, like what percentage of local farmers' income or revenue is coming from that market. I enjoy the market very much. My whole family loves it. And so that was kind of exciting to hear, like what a important economic foothold it is in our community.
Yeah.
So my questions were just around, Andrew, you made mention that if the town of Hartford says that this is a no-go, that basically there's no project. So I'm just curious, like you may have said too, Peggy, that there is no ability to get water on the current site. Has there been an assessment of like septic wells?
Yes, we did it. So I want to clarify, the Norwich Farmers Market is the Norwich Farmers Market. We've created an entity called the Upper Valley Agricultural Association. It's 501c3, and it holds the purchase and sale, and it will then bring over the farmers market. It's very difficult to make a farmers market and a 501c3, and we needed a 501c3 to pursue this project. So I just want to clarify that. And so when we created the Upper Valley Ag Association, we did the feasibility. Thank God for Dorothy Byrne. She helped us underwrite the checking the land to see, can we do sewer, can we do water? For the farmer's market, we could probably get a well, but we cannot, it won't sustain. It's just not the conditions to do a septic at all.
So
To be able to handle it for a 7,000 square foot pavilion.
Okay. And yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about how they regulate, it's just based on
The
potential
size.
occupancy of the, because I assume there's two pieces here, right? There's the capacity for the housing units. and
Well,
then there's
the housing's separate and there's no way that you can do sewer and water for what Andrew's doing. That it's.
Yeah, I mean, part of what I referenced was our experience in New London. So New London, we were invited in by a local group. We worked with them. We got a site. We permitted, as we were finishing permitting the site to get site plan approval, we learned from the water precinct that they didn't feel like they had sufficient water capacity. Well, it was a big site, and we had a foundation that said, we're willing to help you figure this out. We drilled not one, not two, not three, not four, 5 wells before we got a well of sufficient volume to allow us to do the 60-unit housing project that we were hoping to do, only to find out 2 weeks later that there was significant groundwater contamination across the street on land owned by the hospital from a dry cleaner that you heard Landy talking about the dry cleaning business across the way. So not uncommon issue, but it meant that we're never going to use those wells. So it's a huge risk. It's cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's something that we're not prepared to undertake. Because you don't know with a well types of, if you're drilling for wells, what you're going to find. That's why developers like water and sewer from municipalities, because it really does reduce the risk, and it's very expensive to do any project.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
That actually is a perfect segue to my next question, which is for Chris and Brian, as to like how Hartford DPW feels about the capacity to support this extension. So that's one question, is our capacity. The second question for you guys is, how would we set the rates if we were to move forward and provide water, sewer? Could we set a different rate structure than we do for other? Okay, so yeah, why don't you guys?
So there's 2 parts. One is feasibility, that's political, and that's you guys. And that you feel there's a public good, right? So that benefits Hartford, and you may determine that's partly financial and so forth. Then there's the feasibility of engineering, and how we look at this one is we're not there to answer that right now. Like the burden is going to be on them to do the engineering studies. They're looking for a comfort level, and I believe that's mostly political, that you're going to be willing to sell water and sewer service to Norwich entities that offer a greater public good, right? Same basis that the other 2 users signed up based on. For the engineering part of it, we really need studies conducted. There's been one hydrant flow test done. They're going to bring in a private. What we need to do is protect the users of the system. So you can't adversely affect the system. The water is going to affect potentially the users on Palmer Court. Okay, so their engineer is going to do a study. Basically, it's an end of the system line, and they're going to do a pressure calculation based on all of the uses, their peak flows, add their peak flows. What happens to the pressure in the system? Is anyone on that line adversely affected? If so, can it be mitigated? That's their responsibility, but there needs to be a safety factor in it in case someone grows on that street to a larger use, because we have to look out for them as well in their future. So that's a pretty simple calculation. It takes time and research about each building's peak flows and needs. And then there's the sewer. The sewer is going to be a separate, and that one's a little bit tougher because all the sewer from there, along with like the assisted living and Alcott Park, goes down to a little central pump station where it shoots down by force main to the Wilder system, which eventually goes into the main pump station down there. They're going to have to take a look at the peak flows again,
of wastewater and determine if that pump station has the capacity to handle that without improvements or with improvements. Great thing about pump stations is you can usually make some improvements to them, whether it's a storage issue or a pump size issue. That's going to be up to your engineer to present the data to us. We'll review it. If it's borderline and we think a peer review is necessary from outside third party, we'll definitely enforce it as we do with planning projects. But on the financial end of it for DPW, these are basically service lines connected directly to our system. We're not going to maintain any part of the infrastructure that they put in. It's just basically like your house connection. You own your water main to the curb. They're going to own their water line to the curb. The sewer line from your house to the main is your private responsibility. They are going to own that. So this is essentially revenue in, offset in, which we should have plenty of capacity for just on the general system-wide basis. It's whether or not they need to make improvements to the system downstream to not adversely affect it. And so it's a potential revenue source, whether or not you want to mitigate that revenue source through upgrades or a separate rate, that's going to be more your decision, but downstream it's using existing lines. So the cost for us is the cost it is. So it's just potentially more users, and we're Vermont, we're small, our taxes are high, our user rates, especially in Quechee, are high because we don't have the volume number of users. So this is no extension of our systems in order to achieve this. So it's essentially, if it was in town, it'd be considered infill development.
I will, if I can, just touch on a couple of points. Another project that we did in Hanover a number of years ago called Guile Hill. The site is up by the hospital. There was inadequate water pressure because it's uphill from most of Hanover. So as part of that project, Twin Pines and its development partner went ahead and paid for pump upgrades for that project to help ensure that there was adequate pressure at the top of the hill, adequate pressure for the fire protection. And that's for that project. So there are models where we've done these kinds of upgrades and examples. This just is worth bearing. This is a project that we'd like to sprinkler. We typically sprinkler new construction. So that's something we want to get our engineers involved in early, make sure that there's adequate water pressure, and figure out what we would need to do to ensure adequate water pressure with a sprinkler system. And then lastly, I just want to make a point about additional funding. If there are infrastructure improvements that need to be made, a project like this, because it's serving low income folks, might be an opportunity to look at a CDBG application, community development block grant application that would allow for these are federal dollars to pay for infrastructure upgrades, but do it do it tying into the low income housing tax credit project that we would be developing. So again, that's a way to bring sources to the table to help improve the infrastructure to the benefit of the larger community.
Other questions?
Could I just-
And then public comment? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Brian, did you have anything to add, or what's your,
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, when you think about water and wastewater, you got the different components, you've got your supply, your distribution, debt. Supply is probably the cheapest portion of all of that. So really all we would be doing here is supplying water that we're making anyway. So from a cost point for a budget, I mean, it is, to me, it's a good revenue stream. It expands our boundaries a little bit, and the more revenue we can get in, the better off it is for both the water and wastewater systems on that. So.
thank you.
Questions, public comments? Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think what Chris Holsworth and Andrew, thank you. Clarified with this being basically essentially like the water line and sewer line to someone's private home or whatever is helpful. So we're not doing a system extension. You know, we've seen, as the board has seen, a lot of messages online and information and questions about past projects. And this is radically different than the Marion School proposal or ask in some of the other projects that we've heard about. This is much simpler, and we don't own the piece that comes off of Palmer Court. So that's good. And we're talking about not helping Norwich. We're talking about supporting 2 Upper Valley nonprofits that I think benefit people in Hartford as well. I think the only, you know, I think this sounds well worth pursuing. The only question I had was one for Andrew, and this may be one that you're not prepared to answer because you don't know the other pieces of the puzzle. But in past projects, you've sort of laid out as a percentage of AMI what units would be at, you know, 65% and versus different percentages. So we have a sense of the profile of what's being built. But again, so tell me if it's way too premature to talk about your sense of where you're headed with this particular project.
Sure. Fair question. At this point, it's pretty early. Again, you were the first stop, the first official body that we've spoken to. So I would anticipate that we would use low-income housing tax credits, which are federal tax credits. Those tax credits, unlike certain other funding that has been cut, those were actually increased in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And so the tax credits are still there. We would likely utilize those. The question is going to be how far, how much, what are we able to achieve with an income mix? And that really depends on the availability of other federal money, potentially state money. As you may recall, for the project that we're pursuing up on Sykes Mountain Avenue, we're looking at using the Upper Valley Housing Fund. And that, again, allows us to go up to 80%. So we're trying to do a mix of housing incomes or incomes for the households that would live there. But the specifics, not there yet.
Right. That's what I suspected. Thank you.
Yeah.
Comments, questions?
Hello there, I'm Linda Miller, Hartford. I have to say, I wholeheartedly support this project. This is the first time that I've heard a proposal for a project from Twin Pines that I am so excited about. It's answering the question that I've been asking, why aren't other towns stepping forward? And this will be another town stepping forward. So I really support that part. And the second part is I used to be a vendor at both the winter and the summer markets. And guess what? I have not gone to a market yet this summer because I can't stand the parking. It just drives me nuts. It's just, and I miss it. So this would be huge if the Norwich Farmers Market could move across the street, have some elbow room. My little booth was only 6 feet wide, so they could do with a bit wider. And yeah, please support this project.
And then.
Hi, John Hafner, White River Junction. Just also in support of this project. I think I'm in support of the vision of each of these projects, support of affordable housing and the farmers market. But beyond that, I think that it's actually just a really interesting and I'm optimistic about what this could do for the town of Hartford in terms of its municipal water and wastewater systems. I think I appreciate the comments by DPW and really thinking about what this could do for helping ease the affordability burdens on ratepayers and taxpayers to help maintain our water and wastewater systems moving forward. So I think shared municipal services is a good idea in general. I know that this is not that exactly, but I think I like the idea that we're thinking a little bit beyond just our town lines when it comes to water and wastewater. It's a way of helping, I think, just keep those investments running smoothly for us. So yeah, excited about it. I would just maybe recommend I'm on the board of Advanced Transit as well. I would recommend to Andrew and Peggy I know that this is your first stop, but maybe in one of your future stops, talk with Advanced Transit about
seeing feasibility for having a permanent stop at that location. I know that there's a Saturday stop now that they put at the farmer's market. Heard a lot about parking already today, and that's an ongoing conversation. So just wanting to flag that we do have a great public transit provider here, and they're a great partner as well. So make sure to loop them in. So
Thank you. And
Hey, Colin, it's Quechee. So my first question or my first statement would be that it's been hashed over by many boards in the past about connecting Norwich onto Hartford's sewer and water systems, and it never made any progress because all the problems that would run into for us. One of the concerns I have with this, although I do support low-income housing, it's still questionable whether it's low income or not, is the fact that if this project goes forward, we now have water and sewer lines on town of Norwich property. What is to prevent Norwich from tapping into these, because they're going to claim ownership of these lines without having to go through the town of Hartford in the future? Because they're going to claim the loan that they own the system.
The answer is really simple. Those are private lines that are going to be permitted to those individuals. Any request to use them for more use than what they're permitted for has to go through the state of Vermont for a permit, and it has to come to us first and foremost for an allocation to gain more capacity within our system. So it's pretty highly regulated, and in those public locations, it's not going to be the town of Norwich, tapping into our lines. There's private service lines, and you can't just, the days of people just tapping into lines, that should be long gone.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm saying these are going to be because the fact is we have Norwich property. So.
I mean, Lenny, they're going to be tapping in the lines that are already there. So this is just like long laterals for them. So So
this is not going to be the same idea of an extension of service. This is not going to be the same size lines that would be considered under an extension of service.
These are private service lines, so they are not mains. They're not. It's not an 8-inch public main that's getting extended and we own it across their property line. This is a service line going to an individual house or multifamily building in one case, and an individual line going to a small retail seasonal.
They would not support additional lines being able to be tapped into them, correct?
No, they will be sized for their use.
All right, that answers that question.
Any more comments? Word, if you're feeling like we want to learn, what's that?
I'll make a motion, but I'll comment first, really quick. I just want to say that, just like, I know that Vermont is like one of the states that has the least amount of towns connected to municipal water and sewer, which is a huge problem for housing in general. And so I'm really just like proud of our town staff and also nonprofits in the area that are willing to like work across these lines and hopefully set an example for other towns, because I would like to see this type of partnerships and relationships happening across the state. So I just want to say that, and then
yeah, and remember, board, our motion isn't to approve this, it's just to get more information.
Yeah.
So if you want to make a motion, Miranda, please do so.
I move that the board instruct town staff under the direction of the town manager to proceed with discussions with the Norwich Farmers Market and Twin Pines in their request to access utility services from the town of Hartford, and to develop mutually satisfactory agreements to govern the future interactions and roles and responsibilities of the parties.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Second from Eric. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, great. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you very, very much.
Our next item, I think we have Chris up for this one too. Consider acceptance of Class 2 paving grant.
All right, I assume we all read it. I read the memo, and I'll be as quick as I can. All right, so I'd like to say we have a pretty good working relationship going on right now with VTrans and writing grants. Early on into our FY26 paving program, we identified a couple Class 2 roads that we were going to seek bids on, and working with VTrans, they recommended that the next phase of Quechee Main Street be submitted for the grant. This grant is for the paving portion of the project, and
we were given the impression that we were likely going to get it this year after not getting it last year. And we sized up the road to get the maximum they thought we were going to be allowed to get. So before you is we're requesting to have John execute the grant and any follow-up documents, and it will net us a gain towards this year's paving program of $173,859.20.
Any questions for Chris? Any comments? Good, or-
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'll move that the select board accept grant P02231 and authorize the town manager to execute it and any subsequent loan documents.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, next item, review paving bids, award contract, and additional paving projects. I think that's also this.
All right, so I'm assuming we all read it, so I'm going to keep it simple. We had two bidders. We had Blacktop and Pike. Once again, Pike won the bid. Blacktop was a little bit more competitive on their asphalt price. However, all the incidentals, whether it's the milling of the streets and the line strip and so forth, Pike directly provides a lot of those services as far as milling and all. Not as many subcontractors involved. Their price is much more competitive on that end.
Okay.
So we are recommending going with Pike. Our budget, as you'll know, we had a projected surplus on the planned roads. That is a two-part fold there. That is Pike came in for the work they did under budget. And the money, the additional monies we were going to spend, had they come in last fall and we had the time, we were going to move forward with some more overlay paving. Fortunately, they were not able to get in here last fall as scheduled, and they did have an incident with an employee that he's still in the hospital as far as I know. So he was the guy who kept the books and the slips and kept us updated on budget. So we could not plan. We were a little bit blind, so we did not plan additional work, nor did it turn out they had the time. So in our proposal here, and we also have the grant aid that you gave permission on, which will help with drainage. So we have a surplus of 362 in the budget. We're asking to be able to plan out the additional roads that will fit within that budget and execute change orders down the road with them for those. We're still in the evaluation process. After every winter, some of the list changes as deterioration happens, and because we are behind on paving, so we will identify which ones are the worst on the list and attack them.
Any questions, Chris? Motions on 119 is kind of lengthy. Everyone,
Yes, looks like two paragraphs.
take the motion.
I can go for it. Okay. I move that the select board utilize recommend the utilization of the identified funds to authorize the Department of Public Works to purchase supplies and materials up to a total of $131,982 to replace associated culverts and make drainage repairs and improvements prior to paving along the identified roads, and to authorize the town manager to execute a contract with Pike Industries in the amount of the base bid for $803,576.75, and to execute any necessary change orders with Pike for services along the requested roads and streets up to a total maximum amount of $878,160. Further, I move to instruct town staff to further evaluate and scope potential roads and streets for inclusion in the FY26 paving program, prioritizing roads or streets by traffic volume and surface condition for acceptance by the town manager, and authorize the town manager to approve staff recommendations and execute contract amendments and changes or change orders and related town of Hartford expenditures such as ditching or culvert replacement for up to $362,700 $749.15 of additional work.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
Second from Ashley, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Yeah,
All right, next one is.
thank you.
Yeah. thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Lord. Review bids on wastewater line cleaning and video inspection and award contract.
So this is the second part. The last meeting we did the sludge hauling. This is the second part of the annual that we have to do. This is actually the cleaning of the sanitary lines and TVing of it. We're required to do a certain percentage of it. And so between the two facilities, between here and White River and the Quechee, and once again, you typically have two vendors that bid on it, Stearns and Monash. And this year, just Monash bid on it. So the recommendation is to award for Monash so we can, and this just maintains the line. We go in, we clean the pump station at Quechee. We have some grease there, build up and whatnot like that. It just takes care of a lot of the stuff to get rid of it. So.
Any questions for Brian? No questions, I will take the motion. Ashley?
Sir Chair, I'm so used to saying Madam Chair. I move that the Select Board authorize the town manager to execute a contract with NA Monash Inc. for $50,680 with any change orders to follow the purchasing policy.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
Second from Ida, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, consider authorizing asset management loans for Hartford and Quechee water system.
I assume y'all read this memo.
Yep.
This one's kind of exciting. I'm thrilled and happy for this to finally happen. It's been years of hoping. So the state of Vermont offers a 100% forgiveness up to $50,000 to develop asset management plans. Previous years, there's been holdups due to our purchasing policy and how you procure an engineer within the program. And the fact that previously it was believed that one of you had to get the training on asset management. But we have been able to work through the state to get that resolved, that it can actually be one of us to get the training, such as the town manager. So each system,
Sign me up.
each system qualifies for 50,000, but what do we get in this? You ask. Well, we all know that we really need a good financial plan for this town's infrastructure. This asset management plan we've tailored, we've worked with the engineer that we deemed most qualified. And you may have all gotten my memo of how we came up with that. And we've worked with it. We have a public works software system that has the ability to do some asset management work in it, but you have to enter all the data, every valve, every line, every pump into the system. You got to categorize them by what they are, the replacement cost, the age of them, the size. It's intensive. So at the same time, engineers typically put all their information just into a spreadsheet. Well, we worked it out so that they're going to collect the data, the GIS data, get our systems accurately mapped, and they're going to put this data into our system so that we can therefore update it more easily down the road, and we can start using other modules within PubWorks to actually do actual asset management and planning out where our expenses are going. So it's a great benefit in that respect. We're also going to do something that hasn't been done in many, many years as part of this that got included in the loan is we're going to create a hydraulic model of our system that's up to date. The last one, I believe, was 2007. Doesn't include any of the improvements that have been done over time. We're blind as to a lot of our pressures in certain parts of our system and what our capacities are for infill development and so forth with our water system. Right now, we put the burden on engineers, and it's a pain in the butt. This one's, we're going to have a great model. We can share the model with them. They can play around with it. Our engineers can look it over. My recommendation down the road is that not only do we keep the asset management plan up to date, but we keep the model up to date, because every time you make an improvement, it affects the model, affects where you spend your money and what becomes a priority. So the great thing is we did a few years ago start setting up engineering reserves. Obviously, this is more than $50,000 worth of work. It's 23,000.
800.
So over on the White River system and 2,600 over on the Quechee system. We have the money set aside to do our portion of it. It's being subsidized by the state. The state is very anxious to come down and have a kickoff meeting on the 19th with us. That they recognize we need it. They want us to have it. The loan paperwork, I just spoke with them today, is basically just boilerplate stuff. Their main concern was the engineer's contract and working that out. They're very happy about this, wanted to move forward. I know there's a couple numbers in here missing from Gail when she gets back from vacation. When she gets back, she can fill those out. And she said, more than happy that if you guys sign it tonight and condition the release of it to Gail completing the last few numbers on it, they're happy. They would like to get here on the 19th and have a kickoff.
Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. You answered some of my questions about the hydraulic modeling, Chris. Thank you. So in essence, this contract would update the model, which sounds like a lot of updates to it. And then that model would be available for the project we discussed earlier, where engineers need to figure out pressures and so forth. They would take a copy of the most current model and do their work.
Yeah.
And then if a project goes forward, then who continues to maintain and update the model?
So typically the town wants to control the updates. And once you have this model updated, the yearly fee to update a model, the data entry, as long as we keep a good separate set of records of what gets done, should be in the neighborhood of $2,000 to $4,000. So it's not a small cost, but it's a valuable thing. And if you have a year where you don't really have much going on, you skip it. You wait until you have either a major project completed and you've tested the hydrants and you've got the updated pressures, or till you have or if it's just a couple single family houses going in, you wait until you have a good chunk of development happening.
Okay, good. That's helpful. Because I wasn't sure if we had the software to update it and so on and so forth, but you've answered my question. Thank you.
Other questions? Take a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the select board approve and sign the step 2 loan application designating John Haverstock, town manager, as the authorized representative, and Brian Gazda, director of public works, as the alternative representative, and approve a waiver of section 3.6 of the purchasing policy to procure the engineering services, recognizing the unique requirements of the loan process and the current valued and economically reasonable working relationship the town has with the Friends Group as allowed by section 3.7 of the purchasing policy, and approve the town manager to execute the engineering contracts with Friends Group upon receipt of the grant agreements, utilizing each system's engineering reserves to cover the unforgiven expenses of $23,800 for the Hartford water system and $2,600 for the Quechee water system.
We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Second, Eric, any discussion?
Just to say that I'm also really excited about this. This is a huge undertaking that has been a long time coming, that a lot of people have wanted to see happen. So good job. And
so I will just, before I leave, say this is just two systems, right? Just water. We do have two sewer systems, and down the road we do have drainage improvements to consider.
Right, as I tell Chris, we do one at a time.
So
Okay, let's
I
go.
don't-
step in the right direction.
let's get
We're
it.
getting
Let's get
there.
There are no $50,000, 100% reimbursable loans for sewer, but down the road, do expect me to use this as a model and justification to come back to seek a loan, plan and loan for our sewer systems, which will be more, but it's immensely valuable. So
Awesome.
If Chris Holsworth is happy and excited, so am I.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, item K, we're only gonna do K1, which is the considering and approving receipt of donations. This is for the Hartford Fire Department thermal camera purchase.
Yes, we've got Deputy Chief Jason Zora here tonight.
Okay.
Scott Cooney's absence, and he will speak to you shortly.
I haven't met by most of you, but in June, I recognized the need for some equipment for the fire department for the safety of the firefighters, or thermal imaging cameras that are personal size that we would attach to each individual air pack on the apparatus. So if a firefighter were trapped or lost, they could find their way out. It was brought to my attention that the Byrne Foundation might be a source of revenue for that. We had already purchased 4. We need 8 more. So I wrote a letter with the approval of the town manager and finance director and Chief Cooney to the Byrne Foundation for $10,000 in funds to make that purchase. And they sent a check a couple weeks later. So I'm here asking the board for their approval to accept the check to make the purchase of the thermal imaging cameras.
Questions?
Just one question. Do you recall how you heard about this as a resource? And it's just, the Byrne Foundation obviously supports a ton of initiatives around the Upper Valley, and it was new to me that they support our fire department and our police department. So I'm just curious that's been a longstanding thing, and how did you learn about the opportunity?
My counterpart in the police department.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll take a motion. I think it's just to approve the receipt of.
Yes, and by the way, stay tuned. There's been a significant activity recently about donations, and Gail and I have been working up a policy to present to you in a couple of weeks' time to deal with those.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you for reaching out to the Byrne Foundation and soliciting donations, and thanks very much to the Byrne Foundation for their generosity. I will make a motion to approve the acceptance of the donation for the personal thermal imaging cameras for the Hartford Fire Department.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Miranda, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for hanging so
Thanks
late
for
too.
your
That
patience.
was-
Our next item is to review and approve select board work planning doc. John?
Yes, Mr. Chair, as you know, the select board membership, with your absence due to illness, conducted a work session on June 29th here at the town hall to develop work plans and to deal with efficiency matters as well. And as a result, a spreadsheet was developed by our facilitators at VLCT. And I was under the impression that the board appreciated that work, but would like the opportunity to officially accept it, endorse it, approve it for further reliance in the future.
Okay, any questions for John about this?
Yeah, I was just curious. It looks like and correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like what's included in the agenda packet was what we came up with in the workshop, but not the version that made it back to staff for review. Because was it?
This is what I presented to staff
Okay.
and asked them if they had any corrections or problems or questions, to which we received no real substantive input.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be my question, basically. Yeah,
Because I think you all had wanted me to make sure that we weren't missing something here.
Yeah, for sure. Great.
Just a quick follow-up. So I believe the document we developed in the session is on page 364. And I just wanted to clarify what the following documents were. I think those were kind of like work in progress documents.
Yeah, it was all one packet of material that
Okay.
VLCT presented us in 3 different pages in the
Yes.
spreadsheet.
So
Right.
actually 368 is where or 369, can't tell by my computer, is I think the amended version of the first draft of the same document. It has several drafts in there.
Well, I certainly didn't intend to confuse. I simply clicked each of the pages I found on the spreadsheet and printed them off. Maybe I made a mistake doing so.
Okay, so are we in, is that clear? That like the the part that starts at 367 is the most recent? I just want to be clear, what are we like adopting? Like, what's the most up to date version of this?
This is the last version supplied by Kathleen Ramsey and that I have submitted to staff for review.
Which,
And it includes in my hard copy, one page of blue and darker blue, one page of 2 pages of 3 pages of green and yellow and red, front and back.
I don't think we need all of those.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, I think really what we want is just page 367 through 369. But I'm also wondering if there was I thought that Kathy, I'm sorry if I got her right, Kathy.
Kathleen Ramsey, yeah.
Kathleen. I thought that she was also gonna type up what we had come up with that was on the whiteboard.
Yes, and that was in the minutes approved by you at the last meeting. It's like
But
5 or
should it
6 pages of written notes from the meeting.
Okay.
Those were the minutes that were approved last time.
Yeah, I guess my thought was that it might, like, the polished final document might just be this, pages 68 through, or 67 through 69. And also maybe include that kind of to do, like, because I think what Kathy captured there was like kind of our actions, high urgency to low urgency. So yeah, I think maybe it could use a little rework of what this final packet looks like, but yeah, what do other people
Or
think?
to combine those 2 items that you've mentioned.
Yeah, to combine the 2 and maybe remove some other stuff.
If you wanted to do that, you could easily make that motion, or if you feel that you'd like to take a look at this at your leisure and ask me or Kathleen directly how you'd like this packaged, I'd be happy to do it.
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Ed.
I think I would love to see like one final version of the table that I'm confident has all the information in one table. And maybe a supplementary summary, as Ashley was describing.
Good asking John to come back to us next meeting with that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with what Ida and Ashley were saying is get this thing cleaned up. I think the version that's on page 367 is really still has some of my sort of it's just littered with question marks. This is the version that I created the night before the meeting. And so this was the sort of the template that we were working from. And it also has things that are highlighted in yellow, which were my versions of the sticky notes.
I see.
Which weren't intended to be, I threw them in there and then they sort of got swept up and then they weren't supposed to. So some of those need to be pulled out. But the larger concern that I have is that, so we went through this process. In the beginning, we were pretty diligent, I thought. And then as the day went on, inevitably, we got a little fast and loose with the sort of, what is the objective here? And one of the objectives was making sure that we have capacity to do everything that we want to do. And so if we look at these things, the versions that are in here, for example, the dark blue one, which I struggled to read because it's even when you expand it, it gets a little fuzzy, but the capacity and demand variances are big, 6 and 15, 6 and 17 or whatever. So we haven't done the full process of saying, so maybe there's a little bit of latitude if we say that the board capacity is 10 and we end up with 12, maybe we've got a little wiggle room, but somewhere here it feels like we've got more stuff included in this than we can possibly take on. And that was part of the exercises. And so we might have to move some things out, right? Or we might have to look at, or at least maybe take a closer look at some of the things. I think there were items on there that maybe would be just maybe dealt with by the board more efficiently and won't take up a 45-minute block of time, but we should I think we should need to go through the numbers as well as just the formatting. and
I
the
see. So
content.
this is not just a packaging exercise. This is you wanting the board to kind of complete its work to develop this plan?
I think so, and I'm sorry that I didn't get to you earlier on this.
That's
I
fine.
was sort of mulling and I didn't get around to like
Yeah.
communicating that to you by email, and I apologize.
Sure, no problem.
So next steps, what we're gonna.
We can stop talking about this now and I can maybe talk with anyone who's willing to talk about what your final product, what you want to look like and what kind of process you think the board might want to take to.
Yeah,
get
I
us
mean, I'd be
there.
happy to spend some time with you,
Yeah.
or maybe, a non-quorum,
Yeah.
a group of other board members to sort of hammer out the last final details if
Yeah.
if the board would be amenable to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
that's great.
that'd be wonderful. I also am wondering, like, do you think, do we need, I mean, I don't know, I would be open to another, maybe a shorter session, but another like weekend workshop type style thing in the next. I'm hesitant to bring this up because I know people's lives are very hectic. But if you feel like you can kind of take it to the next phase without a full mini version of the workshop, then I'm comfortable with that as well.
I can always make decisions on other people's behalf, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Doesn't John work with the non-quorum amount of board members? If we feel at some point we need another meeting, we can probably get a short one, but otherwise we'll put this off for now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And someone else should join us or one or two other people.
By all means,
if that
by all
works.
means.
Yeah, we'll get email and decide that then.
Great, yeah,
Okay.
logistics we can work out.
You're
without violating-
you're my board conduit. You gather whoever you want.
Okay.
I'll expect a cold call.
The next item is to discuss the budget process and consider adoption of FY 2027 budget cycle.
Yes, very briefly, I just want to let you know that every year, as some of you might know and might not know, the board adopts a budget calendar and then provides budget guidance to staff to help guide their work developing their departmental budgets. So what I've done in concert with Gail and staff is put together a list of dates for budget head presentations to the board through the mid of October, taking us all the way to the adoption of a budget. I've also included just a summary of our budget process, kind of taken from Mike Hoyt's letter to the editor, in which he explains our budget process to voters. So that hopefully is good background reading. And in addition, background reading, hopefully you'll look at the guidance given by the board 2024, 2025 for fiscal years. That might give you a starting point of what you'd like to generate as budget guidance during the August 5th and August 19th sessions. I think last year the board decided simply to repeat without changing the 25 guidance. So the board is certainly capable of doing any kind of guidance you'd like. One thing I have heard based on last year's experience is that, yes, maybe some guardrails in terms of increases might be helpful. We have shied away for it in the past, but given that we came in with kind of wish lists at 18% increases, we spent a lot of time getting down to reality. So if you wanted to provide us some parameters on a potential increase, that might be helpful.
But those are August 5th, 19th.
Yes.
Do finalize.
That's right. That's right. But for tonight, if you could consider approving the budget calendar, we can start locking in those dates in our calendars.
Questions for John?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it may not be, I guess it's not really a question as much as it is a comment or a desire. But one thing that I think we could do that would be really beneficial to the residents of the town, to feel beneficial to the residents of the town and to select board members and to staff, is to somehow engage the community better with the budget presentations from the departments. I know that we all only have a limited amount of time. And as I look at this schedule, it's like, wow, I don't see where we could add additional days or where we could break police and fire into two separate, days. But I really do feel that at some point, we are going to have to dig deeper into our budgets of these departments and make really hard decisions. And I don't see how we can do that in the like allotted times that we've traditionally heard presentations. And this will be my first budget season, and I'm learning. And I'm sure I might feel differently at the end of it, but I think there's a disconnect that maybe budget season can help to engage folks.
Certainly, these are all public sessions, but to take Ida's point on what kinds of public interest we can generate through the efforts of JD and others, we could certainly highlight for people that this is the budget calendar. Are you interested in a DPW, or are you interested in police and fire? These are the nights. Come on down. Everybody has an opportunity to provide their input.
Yeah.
Certainly
yeah.
open to that for sure.
And I just want to, and I'll learn, but I would imagine that there are a lot of bigger picture considerations that the departments have to make outside of the next fiscal year that maybe we kind of always brush off, or it's like, oh, well, we just have to like focus on this year's budget and maybe we'll get to that bigger. Like, I'm hesitant to set any restrictions on increases, which I know we're not deciding tonight, because like maybe DPW does need a huge increase to actually like maintain and improve our infrastructure to the level that we need. So yeah, I think mostly DPW is in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
As I kind of ramble about
And
this.
one thing we ought to remember that we do have this capital improvement plan grant, which we're just talking about hiring the consultant for. That'll be a process by which all departments will be kind of placing their longer term needs down on paper, so we can use that as a budgeting tool year after year. And Eric, of course, has had the suggestion that we consider multi-year budgeting, which I think is a great idea because it has us always thinking about.
Not budgeting.
Planning.
Tell me what you mean.
Oh,
I thought you were talking about a
budget,
three-year,
financial
planning. A three-year
Financial
budget.
planning, yeah, the distinction is we're not approving any budget, sorry.
Well, of course not.
Right.
Maybe I'm using the wrong words. It's a semantic issue. But yeah, keeping in mind a 3-year rolling financial plan, the first year of which becomes the annual operating budget.
John, just clarify, if we adopt this calendar,
Yeah.
it can be amended.
Of course. Yes, yes. And often is sickness, vacation, snowstorm.
Any other questions for John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair. I will move to adopt the proposed FY 2027 budget calendar.
Okay, we have a second.
I will second.
A second from Ida. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've had a resignation from the select board. We're gonna discuss filling the vacancy. John's gonna tell us what our options are. And then we'll decide, I guess, how we want to go forward.
I think you did a fine job earlier, Mr. Vice Chair. According to VLCT, there are basically 3 options for the board at this point. First, leave the seat open. Second, fill the seat with an appointed member to go through the March town meeting day. Or third, open it up to a special election, again, with the term running only through a town meeting day in March. Obviously, there's some expense, and a special election could be time and labor consuming. So just as long as you're factoring in those things, the floor is yours for your decision making.
Thank you, Lanny Collins. I'm gonna correct you on that. The Hartford Town Charter does not allow for a special election unless the board cannot decide on a replacement. Specifically, the Hartford Town Charter, regardless of what VLCC says, the charter states, and I will read it directly. In the event of a death, resignation, change of residence to a location outside the town, or incapacity of any select board member, the remaining members may appoint a person eligible to fill that position till the next annual or special town meeting. If the select board is unable to agree upon an interim placement until the next annual town meeting, a special election shall be held forthwith to fill the position. So if y'all can't decide on who you want,
Right.
unanimous decision, that's when it has to go to special election.
Mhm.
But you have the option of A, filling the position, or B, not filling the position.
Mhm.
Thank you, Lanny. So we can fill it or we can leave it vacant. Thoughts, Ashley? and
Could I
then-
ask Lanny a question based on that? And you may not know the answer.
Oh, I know the charter very well.
Okay, yeah. Can you go back to the microphone so everyone at home can hear you?
I'm very well versed with the town charter.
So, well, I'm intrigued now because, so if we went through the appointment process and we couldn't agree, are we then compelled to do a special election? Or
Yes.
could we say, oh, we're gonna choose not to fill the seat until March election?
No, if you've gone through decision making, you can't make a decision. In my opinion, it seems to me there, you've already started the process. If you've started the process to decide you're going to fill the seat and you cannot decide to fill this on who you want unanimously, to me, that means that action takes the next step of having to be forced to go to a special. That's just my-
Unanimously. I'm interested by that
Well,
word.
that's just my thought process, unanimously. So it doesn't have to be unanimously, it can be majority. I'm reading.
Yep.
Again, I'm perhaps reading
Yep.
too much, but
Yep.
the way I'm reading this says that if you start the process to fill the seat and you cannot decide on who you want to fill the seat, come to a tie, that means it's forced to go to, that's just my reading of it, okay? But there's nothing that reads specifically, you are forced to go to a special election, only if you cannot decide. So you gotta be careful in how you wanna go about this. March
Thank
is
you.
a long ways away.
Yeah, and I'll point out that when Sue Buckholz stepped down, it was late October. Here we're late July.
So it seems like if three of us like candidate A, three of us like candidate B, then we would have to have a special election. So.
Maybe.
Or negotiate among yourselves to avoid a special election.
So what are people's initial thoughts? I would leave it vacant. But I don't think that's the majority of the board.
I'm very much in favor of filling the position. But I'm really only in favor of filling the position if we can find somebody with board experience, and that could be school board, or mainly as a new board member and being aware of how many of us are new board members. I'd really like to have the guidance and experience during budget season of former board members or people with a lot of experience in budgeting. What I'm not interested in is it becoming a big political, like ideological question or an appointment because somebody has a certain ideology. Like, I think it really is a matter of like function of government, and we should fill the seat.
Any other thoughts before we hear from Lanny again? Okay, any board members have a preference on this before we hear from the public?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I would echo those comments. I think it's nice to have more perspectives on the board. And certainly if we were able to find someone with board experience, that would be a great bonus. So I would lean toward filling the position. I could be persuaded otherwise, though. The idea of a special election is costly, and the town clerk's office with the tax appeals
And being understaffed.
that would be a burden for the town clerk. And so I would hate to see us go down that road. But that doesn't mean that we can't try to appoint someone and then negotiate if we had multiple candidates, and we might have to sort it out. So something, deliberations in executive session is kind of the thing that one would expect in this, right? Once we've interviewed candidates.
And Lana does mention her institutional memory, that in the past, in situations like this, the select board has solicited applications by a deadline, interviewed candidates, perhaps in open session, and then deliberated in the executive session, made the announcement, of course, in public session.
I think the threshold question is, do we want to fill it? Then we can figure out how do we go about it.
Can I offer a comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
The very nature of having a board with 7 or 5 or an uneven number is so that you don't have a locked agreement. That's the whole very nature of having an uneven board. So it is very worthwhile to get a 7th member, because that way you can't have a locked up vote.
We did it last
That's-
year.
Right, but it's.
But all right, so Eric, Miranda, what do you think? Fill it or leave it be?
I lean towards filling it. I think for the same reasons Ashley is described of going through the budget season with someone who has experience with. Yeah, just more perspectives, especially with 3 new board members, I think is helpful.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile to solicit applications and try to fill it. I think I would, want to make sure that we could decide again if there isn't an applicant that we are confident would be an asset to the board.
Say that last part again, Ida.
That we would retain the option to just choose not to fill it if we don't have an applicant that we're confident would be an asset to the board.
Yeah, I agree.
So, so it sounds like the majority of the board is in favor of filling the position. Can we, Eric, go ahead then.
I just wanted to clarify the last part, because I thought what I was hearing earlier was if we start the process, then, and we can't make a decision, then we have to go to a special election, which seems like there's a risk component to starting the process.
It says if the select board is unable to agree on an interim replacement.
But if we agree that there is no, we don't.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
might be a VLCT
Can you get
question.
clarity from VLCT?
Yeah.
on our
To
charter?
interpret our charter first, sure.
Yeah. Because I think that's enough interpretation. I think it is not worth avoiding the process entirely, because like an interpretation of the charter could lean towards being forced into a special election where it's not, like Lanny said, it does not explicitly state you are then forced to go. We could all agree that there were no qualified candidates or that, whatever.
So I'd say let's, John, look into that.
Yeah.
And go back to us. We have someone on Zoom, I think, and then it sounds like we have someone.
Mike, go ahead.
Mike?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in that, for example, Mike, you were just speaking and it was very difficult to hear you because you're so far away from your microphone. That's the trouble with us people on Zoom, and you're sitting there. I know it's a late night and you want to sit back and relax, but it's hard for us to hear you sometimes. So I'm just asking if to be more responsive, everybody, to speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, my apologies, Mike.
No problem. No, it's not, but just you, it's everybody. So thank you.
Yep, thanks, Mike.
Hi, I'm Sonia O'Banion from Wilder. John, first off, I'd like to apologize earlier. I think I was frustrated because I should have used the word condescending and not the profane word that I used, so I apologize. I would like, so you did answer my question about the seat just now, and how that is going to be taken care of going forward. The reason I asked is because I have served on the select board and I am curious about the position, because I think I'd like to sit up there. I just have a lot of concerns about what's going on currently with the town, how it's being run. And Mr. Holt, I would like to, pardon?
Hoyt.
Mr. Hoyt. I would like to point out that what you did earlier was illegal.
What was illegal?
By hanging up on me on Zoom and having them shut me off on Zoom.
Okay. Well,
You
can
need to
report
brush
it.
up, pardon me, I'm speaking.
Okay, go
You
ahead.
need to brush up on the open meeting law because it was illegal and you violated my First Amendment right. You were voted in on this town and you took your microphone power to an extreme.
Look,
and-
you're free to insult the select board. but
You're
not our
absolutely right,
town
I am,
employees,
because it's,
not our
you're
town employees.
he is a public official and
Not an
he,
elected one, we hired.
pardon
him.
me, I'm speaking.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Make your point.
Thank you. If you would just let me. So he is a public official. He's open to scrutiny. Are you familiar with New York City or New York Times versus Sullivan?
I am.
Brush up. Okay, the other thing is, pardon, Ashley, what's your problem?
I just think this is an interesting interaction for someone who's interested in being appointed by this board on the board. Like, this is like wildly intense.
Don't
and
worry,
You use
I don't
profane
expect,
language.
pardon?
You use profane language, and I
Yeah.
get it.
Mhm.
Tensions are high,
Mhm.
but it's not contributing to the solutions to be so like aggressive and frustrated.
Right, where the behavior came from the board, and I addressed John directly with my apology, because the behavior and the attitude came from him first. Okay, thanks,
Okay.
Ashley. So anyway, I would just encourage you, like I did at the last meeting, to brush up on your open meeting laws. And no, you probably won't appoint me because you don't like me.
I
Come
like you.
March,
I
the
like you as a
town
person. I've
may
known
like
you
me.
personally. I'm just,
And
that's
then
why
you'll
I'm
have to deal
concerned
with me.
about and
Thank
confused
you.
about this interaction.
Okay, so it sounds like, John, you're gonna get back to us with some VLCT info.
On the interpretation of the town charter. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So-
would you like to do any other planning tonight about a solicitation and interview schedule, or wait for that?
Why don't you tell us the interpretation that you get?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just mindful of the clock and the calendar
Yeah.
ticking on.
No, I
So
know.
I'll report back to you before August 5th. Yes?
Yeah, and I think there's agreement, majority of the board to fill.
Yep.
Just need that question.
Yep. Yep.
All right, great.
Or, excuse me, sorry, Mr. Vice Chair, would an option be to have a conditional process? So if the LCT comes back and says, we're pretty confident that if the board can't decide on what to do, that you do not need to engage in a special election. If that were the answer, then would we want to begin the process of soliciting applications, for example, so that we keep the ball moving?
Yeah.
Would that be-
Let's see if they can be that clear in their analysis. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Eric, you mean soliciting applications starting now? Or starting at the next meeting?
Once
like once
the
we-
response was received, if a response was received that said, if you can't make a decision by appointment,
Mhm.
then we believe you do not need a special election. If that was the answer,
Yeah.
then begin the process of soliciting applications,
Yeah.
having JD put out the word.
Right. And with a reasonable response time, then setting that following select board meeting as an interview night.
Right, and we could even say, like, what would that be?
Yeah.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Like a 2-week.
10
window?
days.
Days?
Yeah.
I concur that the charter needs a lot for interpretation.
Yeah, let's do that and then do the finish up.
Just one more request. Would it be possible to share the application form with us?
Yeah, I've already got it actually
Okay.
tweaked from the regular board and commission
Okay.
and just tidied up a
I
little
would
bit
love to
language.
just look at what it's gonna look like, so we can have a chance to put input on it if
Sure.
you have any.
Of course.
So we're agreed, we can wait to hear back from John. Good.
Yep.
Okay, let's go to commission reports. Ashley,
Nothing to report?
Ida,
Nothing.
Miranda?
The tree board had a very successful tree ID walk over this past weekend. It was a lot of fun. And I don't know much about trees, but they let me participate and they pointed at those trees and they said, Miranda, that's the tree that you're supposed to talk about. And it was really nice and we had good participation, so.
Awesome. Eric, you have any?
Nothing tonight.
Okay, I don't have any, so I'll take a motion for the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ida.
I move that we approve the payroll ending July 19th, 2025, and the AP manifest of July 18th, 2025, and July 24th, 2025, and the meeting minutes of July 10th, 2025, and July 14th, 2025, and future meetings of August 5th, 2025, and August 19th, 2025.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second.
Friendly amendment.
Oh, yes.
I made a correction to the meeting minutes dated Monday, July 14th, 2025. I feel so silly sometimes correcting these things because and it may be my mistake, but I believe that on item O, which was on the recommendation to utilize wastewater capital reserve for emergency repairs, Ida Griesmer did not second the motion. Brandon Smith did.
Okay, so friendly amendment to approve those minutes as amended. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, if you have a second from Miranda, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No executive session. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second from Meredith. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Long meeting.